It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott's here. A ghostly visit from Richard Campbell, who's stuck at DIA. We will talk about the EU. They finally named a big tech giants. You might not be surprised at who is on that list. Maybe you will be. Microsoft just released the first public preview of Windows Copilot to some people. And Satya Nadella, his day on the stand in the last day of trial in the Microsoft Activision hearing. All of that and more coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Richard Campbell, episode 836, recorded Wednesday, July 5th, 2023. SharePoint under every desk. Windows Weekly is brought to you by Collide. Collide is a device trust solution for companies with Okta, and they ensure that if a device is not trusted and secure, it can't log into your cloud apps. Visit collide.com/WW to book an on-demand demo today. And by ACI Learning. IT skills are outdated in about 18 months, so future-proof your business by staying ahead of the competition with customizable, binge-worthy training. Visit go.acilearning.com/twit to fill out the form and get more information on a free 2-week training trial for your team. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show we cover the latest news from Microsoft. Rich Campbell is out doing something fun, I think. So there'll be no fifth on the 5th, but we do have Mr. Paul Thurrott of Thurrott.com. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Leo.
How are you today?
I'm good. I'm a little lonely, but it's okay.
Aww. Well, it's like the old days. The very old days now.
That's true.
Goes back more than 10 years you've had a co-host. Now it's just you and me, bud.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll be like, you've watched Succession, right? I'll be like, what's the kid Roman's speech at the funeral? I'll just step right up and everything will be great.
Oh my gosh, that's such a scene. Oh my gosh.
Oh man.
So I thought you'd be in Mexico, but you stayed home to celebrate the nation's independence.
Leo, I don't know if I'm surprised. Would it be in 16-something years into this podcast?
Yes.
And I literally book all of my travel around this podcast.
I like that.
You have more of an influence over my travel than my wife does.
I don't know if she likes that, but I'll take it. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Did you do something for the 4th yesterday?
Well, yeah, sort of. So we have, we just moved to Macungie. Macungie is it's a poor community, I think is the way I would describe it.
Is it really? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, it really is. It's funny because it's like this little place of 3,000 people that's inside of Lower Macungie, which is a really big place of 33,000 people and is very affluent.
Oh, that's interesting. So I would have thought it's the other way around. Like Macungie would be the primary and Lower Macungie the subsidiary.
Exactly. I never knew. We were right next to it the whole time, literally 7-minute drive from our old house. And I've been to Macungie. I never understood what it was until I got here. And then you get that slowly dawning realization,
Was
people here are
coal?
fantastic.
Was it a coal community?
No, there was a nothing community. That's why it's poor. So I think of it as the drain from which Lower Macungie, drains itself or whatever. But I love it here. And what's interesting is right on the edge of the apartment complex is a beautiful golf course and country club. And,
mostly used by the Lower Macungians.
Oh, it's notably inside Lower Macungie. It's not in Macungie, but we're right on the border of it.
Uh-huh.
And so
that's actually the dividing line, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It really is. It's like 10 feet from my window.
We live on the wrong side of the golf course. So
it's literally sunnier over there. So we discovered we were walking one night, and I said, there's a hole in those bushes that it goes into this rough part behind the country club. Like the golf area owns it, but there's not a golf course there. It's all like wild. And I said, we should go take a look at that. And we did. And there was someone had mowed a path.
Oh my God.
Which we later discovered was so that you can access the, the brook here, or the creek, just like near our old house. There are these kind of sewer outlets. And
yes.
So they have to
drains,
be accessible.
Rain drains, not sewer. I mean, that implies sewage.
Well, I think, sure, it's water that probably drains down into the creek. Yeah. So those have to be accessible. And so they actually mow it. And I said, it's interesting because that means we can walk around here and they will never know we're here. So for the 4th of July, we decided to do that for this country club, which had a beautiful fireworks display. You can see it on my Instagram account. And you can see where we were standing in the pitch black. And I literally said, I don't understand, like, how guileless are the kids here? There was no one out there drinking or doing drugs, right? We were the only people there.
Spackler, get over there, fill that hole. The McCungians are getting in. I almost wanted to go door to door and
be like, yeah, what are you people doing?
We found the source of the vermin.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice. So there was no one else there?
No one.
Wow.
Just us.
Your secret spot. How romantic. Nice. Maybe time to start another family right there.
What did you do for the 4th? I'm sure.
We found, as you did, a loophole in the fireworks. The Petaluma City Fathers decided that the fireworks display should not, in fact, be visible from the site of the fireworks display, but instead they were going to shoot them a little higher so you could go elsewhere and look up and see them and be awed by their splendor. So we went to the downtown parking garage.
Wow, nice. And go up to the top.
Go up to the top. There were a lot of people there. Had a spectacular view.
Sure.
And then we went home.
Oh, that's cool.
Anyway, happy 4th. For people from outside the U.S. who might have been a little confused that nothing happened yesterday, that's why. It's a U.S. holiday.
Actually, something big did happen yesterday. We got a little FU from Europe as a little happy 4th of July.
A little like, see, you deserve this. What happened?
It's like, is the United States off today? Let's release this information.
Oh, wow.
So you may remember that back in, I think it was November, December, the EU reached a consensus on the Digital Markets Act, the DMA, which is designed to rein in big tech, specifically what they call gatekeepers, right? These are the app store owners, the online, the huge online services, et cetera, et cetera. And when they did that, they said, look, we've got 3 things we got to do to kind of follow up on this. One of them is we're going to identify who the gatekeepers are, and then there's a couple other things. We're going to figure out what the remedies will be and yada, yada, yada. So yesterday on July 4th, literally, Thierry Breton, the French commissioner, he's not the French commissioner, he's French, but he's the commissioner for the internal market of the EU, said who the 7 companies, the first 7 companies.
Well, let me guess. Apple and Google, because you said app stores. Okay.
Yep.
And I'm figuring, because you're reporting on it here, Microsoft.
Which is where the "we did it" came from, because Microsoft was finally included with the big boy pants, big tech companies.
Let's see, that's 3. Amazon, obviously. Meta, obviously, that's 5.
Yep. This is where the obviousness drops off the cliff, because after those, you're like, what are the other 2?
Well, Tencent in China. Do they?
Okay. Yes, you are correct.
Okay.
So ByteDance, I think.
ByteDance.
Was
ByteDance. Yeah.
It was placed on the list. They are very
should be
confused by this. They think they should not be there. They're going to try to get off of it. And then, okay. Sorry. What's the last one? Yeah, it's a tough.
Well, I'm thinking because our friend Amy Webb did a book called The Big 9, which was the 9 big tech companies, and it was Amazon, Google, Facebook. Baidu and Alibaba were the 2 Chinese. So let me think.
Those companies don't do business in EU, probably.
It would have to be an EU. Maybe that's it. Yeah. So she was Google, Amazon, Apple. IBM. How about IBM? Did they mention IBM?
No, not IBM. Although I'd like to think IBM will make the list the next time around, because it's going to be a 2.0.
Oh, good. Something to look forward to. How about Alibaba? That was also on her big 9. No. I give up.
Geographically, you're getting there. Samsung.
Because of the Samsung phones.
So here's the deal.
They do have their own app store. Yeah.
Yeah, when they first announced it, it was like Gatekeeper is a large internet platform. They're going to have over 45 million active users, market capitalization of over US 82 billion or 75 billion euros, right?
Okay.
And then there's the vagueness, the beautiful vagueness of the has to have or is about to have an entrenched and durable position in the market, meaning that it's stable over time if the company met the 2 criteria above in each of the last 3 financial years. So a little bit of wiggle room. Like you could drop out technically 1 year, but if you're in there 2 or 3, you're in.
I guess Samsung, it must be the phones, because I can't think of their TVs. It's not their washing machines.
Well, it's internet platforms, right?
Oh, okay.
I think you're right. It has to be the phones.
Yeah.
I mean, they have online services associated with their phones, obviously.
They do, including a store, which might be what got them in.
They must have hundreds and hundreds of millions of users, so it's possible there are 45 million active users of Samsung services. I don't know if they have to be in the EU. Maybe they mean worldwide. I'm not even sure about that part of it, but okay. I don't look at Samsung as being a big abuser of their gatekeeper.
Well, now they should start, right? Because
I would.
Yeah.
It worked for Microsoft, And what's the funniest thing about this is Booking.com said that they were told by the EU that you're making it next time we make the lists.
Booking.com?
I know.
What?
Because you know how we all go, maybe Europe uses Booking.com a lot. I don't know. I thought this was kind of odd.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert on how...
No, I'm not either, but I think that seems strange, right? I think we can all agree it's a little weird. Well, but here's the good news, folks. They're going to go after these companies. And let's see, companies that do not comply with the rules. Actually, we should talk about the rules. So they're prohibited from, there's things they can do and things they can't do, right? So they're prohibited from treating their in-house services more favorably than those made by third parties.
That's fair.
They can't prevent consumers from linking up to businesses outside of their platforms. As I say,
that's a big one for Apple, by the way. That's huge.
I want you to think App Store as I say these, because this is clearly
that's aimed at Apple, because Apple won't let apps say.
In fact, Apple is going to the Supreme Court to let it do this right now.
Right.
Crazy.
Oh boy.
Preventing users from uninstalling any pre-installed software or app if they wish to do so, Samsung. Tracking users outside of the Gatekeepers core platform service for the purpose of targeted advertising.
Google Meta.
Right. Possibly Microsoft too, actually.
Actually, Meta is not going to be able to launch their new Twitter clone because it snarfs up so much information, including, and thank you, Apple, for making them do this. So they've got that thing, that your health information, like that's somehow relevant to your threading, your tweeting.
I'm excited that there is yet another Twitter alternative, because I got to tell you, I am not saturated yet. So I can totally...
I can handle 5 more. Easy. Easy. I just have a folder for them.
What's the one that was made by the former guy from Twitter? What's that thing?
Blue Sky. There's Blue Sky. And then there's some former Twitter people that did T2. And then there's some former black Twitter developers and users who've created a new black version of Twitter. I don't remember. I can't remember the name of it. I don't want to say it wrong. Let me see. I'll find it. It's the black-owned app surges to #1 after Elon Musk's shenanigans. It's called Spill, as in, I get it, spill the tea.
I see. So I'm just going to take issue with the word shenanigans, because shenanigans suggests there's no malicious intent.
Well, no, I don't know if there is. He's so...
you think he's just an idiot? Because that could be too.
He's like the idiot billionaire in Avenue 5, if you've ever watched that show.
I have not, but that's...
I think he's modeled, the guy in Avenue 5 is kind of modeled on Elon.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's worth watching just for that. That's the one that stars the guy who was in House.
I think the healthiest thing we could do as a people is to stop being fascinated by individuals who are in fact terrible, because most people are in fact terrible.
And billionaires, the worst, because nobody says no to them.
Convinced that they are geniuses when in fact luck probably played the biggest role of all. It makes me crazy.
Well, they got some money, so good. That is not by itself qualification.
No.
Just means you got some money.
No, it's like Steve Martin. I must have said this in your presence. I know you're friends with Steve Martin. You know the great Steve Martin joke from the 1970s. How to turn $1 billion in real estate into $10,000 in hard cold cash. Step one, get $1 million.
Yeah.
So it's literally that stupid. What else we got here for these guys?
He's a philosopher for the ages.
He really is. And I think that was most of it. Tracking users outside of gatekeepers. I already said that. Without effective.
I think all of this, a lot of this kind of is aimed at Apple and Google. And I feel like Amazon and Facebook and Microsoft got sucked in, in the undertow of this.
Yeah, this is like you're deep sea fishing and you cast a net and you're looking for tuna, but sometimes some dolphins come up, So you get these other things. Some of them you throw back, and some of them are like, yeah, maybe we could eat this. And that's what I think Microsoft and Samsung, maybe certainly fall. We'll see. We'll see. In fact, we have a story coming up that may partially explain what they're going after. But Microsoft certainly qualifies from all of the points. They have the active users. They have the market cap. They are entrenched. They are
entrenched. There's no doubt about it.
Yep. So, we'll see.
Although they're not Apple's not as entrenched in the EU as they are in the the US.
Sorry, who isn't?
Apple.
Company? Apple.
Apple's really, they're a dominant force in the U.S., but I think Android devices, particularly Samsung, I would imagine. Used to be Nokia and others. But
it doesn't say anything about being first in the market, right?
It's
45 million active users, and it's a market cap of whatever amount. Apple qualifies for market cap, forever.
$3 trillion this week.
And they have 1 billion users overall, so it's reasonable to think that there are hundreds of millions of Apple users in the EU.
Kev Brewer, who's a Brit, says Booking.com is kind of like Airbnb in the EU.
Okay.
So Airbnb would be reasonable. They really control the rental.
Maybe they could go after Ticketmaster, as a terrible gatekeeper, right?
Yeah, at least in the U.S. I don't know. Again, we suffer by being chauvinists, but.
Well, yes, we do. That's fair. Ignorance, it's, for those of us in the U.S., right, or for those of us who are outside of the EU, generally speaking, it's unclear what the outcomes here will be, right? Because it's, in the EU, obviously they're going to go after these companies. They're going to try to prevent them from doing their egregious behavior, but they might choose in many cases just to make that change in the EU, so we'll have to wait and see. We have this hope in the U.S., for as ignorant as we may be, if anyone is paying attention to antitrust and big tech, the hope is that EU will step up and do something about it because they seem like the most aggressive out there.
Yeah.
Possibly will.
Yeah. Again, though, as much as I want some curbs on these guys, I also fear that these will be the wrong curbs and have unintended consequences. And it's such a difficult thing. If government doesn't control big tech, who's going to? Not big tech, for sure.
Yes, but Leo, we go to regulation not because it is easy, but because it is hard.
Yes, it's true. Thank you, JFK. Or did Steve Martin say that too?
Well, this is like what was it like George W. Bush and stem cells. It's like, we don't really know, so why even try? And, it's like
we don't know. It's like AI. We don't know.
Maybe that's not the best way to do it.
I don't. There's only 3 things that could control big tech, the market, and that's the problem is they get so big that the market no longer impacts.
Well, they tilt the market. They control it.
Or government.
That's right.
I guess we as users, if we could all act in concert, could also harm them by saying, well, we're just not going to deal with them.
Yes, you would think. But like I just talked about celebrity worship and whatnot. I think this exists with the companies as well. I think Apple in particular is this company that has this kind of fan base that seems to be kind of blind to all the terrible things about the company.
Yeah.
And so you just get kind of a blunt kind of, I don't care. I like that this stuff all works together.
It's good. It works.
They stop paying attention,
Yeah. So something we know from the years in the 90s of Microsoft dominance.
Yeah. Well, listen, I was all for it back then, but I got to tell you, now that things are a little different, Microsoft was terrible, right? Actually, the interesting thing, I will say, I did have this little bit of insight back in the early 2000s. I sort of made the argument at the time, if you think Microsoft is terrible, imagine how terrible the world would be if Apple was this dominant.
I said that back in the day. I totally said that. Yeah, all the time.
Yep.
And now, unfortunately, my dream has come true.
I know. Oh, how we laughed. Oh, how we laughed.
Our dream has become our nightmare. I have to say, I mean, on my phone, Mac, I'm kind of all in.
Yeah.
Because it does all work,
Sure.
I'm one of the suckers.
You're going to be like that guy at the end of Invasion of the Body Snatchers who points at me and then screams to me, points me out like the last Windows
Donald
user.
Sutherland, yes.
Yeah.
They are the body snatchers. And
right.
we are the plant people.
That's right.
All right.
All right. So there's
now that you've brought me down. So what is the EU in this? And by the way, the EU's penalties
we should talk about what they can do.
Are significant.
Yeah, they're usually pretty good. So companies that do not comply with the DMA rules will face fines of up to 10% of their total worldwide annual turnover revenues. They don't, by the way, they've been talking about this for a long time. I don't think any company has ever been fined any percentage of their annual turnover. They talk about that, and maybe that's because the companies eventually come around.
The fines are getting bigger though, right? I mean,
yes. So if you're repeated infringements, it's like bonus round or driving fast or work zone, you could be fined up to 20%. And then there are periodic penalty payments of up to 5% of the average daily turnover.
Wow.
Systemic infringers. There's another level. It's just like air quality index. You didn't know there was something beyond red until it happens. Face additional remedies, behavioral and structural remedies, I should say, including potential divestiture of parts of a business. Like there are people that want to get Meta to give up Instagram or WhatsApp or whatever, right? That kind of stuff. And I think it is the EU wants them to divest themselves of what was DoubleClick, the advertising business.
Right. And I'm not against it, by the way. I think Google has really been egregious in the way that they have dominated online ad sales.
I 100% agree. But on the other hand, I think we can also clearly admit that you see the trouble there, though, right? I mean, this is a radical step.
Yeah.
And it's one that's going to be fought tooth and nail, and not just by Google, but by various other parts of governments. And it's not
a tough
doable.
One. Yeah,
that's a tough one. I mean, I agree it should happen, but
it's kind of closing the barn door after the horse is bolted.
Yeah, although, well, it's like bringing the horses back in a way. If you do it right. Yeah. I don't know how you make that right. I mean, does that mean like, Microsoft gets to goggle them up and gobble them up and be the next, terrible advertising company?
I like Google them up.
Google them up. I know. It's right how I mix those words up. Gobble
Google and gobble.
Yeah. You got your Google and my gobble. Yeah. So I don't mean to say excited, but I will say as antitrust attention has turned to big tech in recent years, it's been notable to me that Microsoft has not been part of that conversation. I would say over the past couple of years, that has started to change. And of course, with the Activision Blizzard acquisition, it's right in your face, right? This one has been obviously very, very hotly contested. But don't worry, Microsoft fans, the EU, actually, I should say, there was a report from Reuters, right, saying that antitrust regulators, meaning the European Commission, in the EU will now launch a formal antitrust investigation of Microsoft Office because remedy discussions with the company have broken down. And we have gotten hints of this over the past several months. Slack, of course, filed their complaint back in 2020. That came off as a little bit whiny to me. But then again, this is the EU, and there are some interesting parallels between what Slack is complaining about and what Microsoft did in the 1990s and early 2000s with Internet Explorer and Media Player and all that kind of stuff. So basically, the EU started their kind of an informal small investigation. Obviously, they went to Microsoft and said, hey, what can we do here? And Microsoft said it was willing to cut the price on a version of Office that does not include Microsoft Teams. The issue being the bundling of Teams with Office. A lot of people have given me feedback saying, I don't understand what this complaint is because no one buys Microsoft Office anymore. But I would just remind people that there are between 1.5 billion and maybe 2 billion Office users worldwide, and the vast majority of them are not subscribed to Microsoft 365, right? Granted, the vast majority of them are probably also not using Teams, but Microsoft 365 is one of the ways, and probably will become one of the primary ways that Office is, distributed. But it's not clear what the mix of new sales is, right? So I don't really know that. But anyway, basically, the EU came back and said, look, we want you to cut the price more than that. Microsoft said no, they didn't reach an agreement. And now they're going up with the formal investigation, and they'll charge Microsoft with antitrust violations.
Wow.
So other than the obvious, right? This is interesting. It just is interesting. Like what someone, of course, I'm going back and forth with people about this, and someone's like, I don't understand, how would this even work? And I'm like, think about it. I mean, think about what Microsoft went through in the EU in the early 2000s. And that thing was really protracted and drawn out. Basically, they were charged with bundling what was called middleware at the time, right, in Windows. And what they ended up doing was releasing special Windows versions, the end editions, that didn't include the bundled middleware. And so as a European Union or a European customer, you could choose which one to get with a new computer when you bought it at retail. They also had that kind of ballot box thing, remember, for Internet Explorer, so you could choose the browser when you
I wonder how much Sleipnir's market capture went up.
Yeah, exactly. Ballot. Well, it doubled from 0.01% to 0.02%. So it's reasonable, given that background and precedent, that there will be two major tiers of Office. One will include Teams and one will not. And you can think of the one that does not as Office and Editions, It will probably only impact the EU market, by the way. And I'm absolutely not saying that makes any sense, doing such a thing, but it's happened before, right? So, sure. Right? I mean, Microsoft dominates Office productivity. They sure,
Not that others have not tried to compete.
Right. I mean, we've all tried Amazon's. No, we haven't. What am I talking
we never
about?
even heard of it.
They are. but it exists.
I know.
The crazy thing is it's there.
Amazon has an Office. It's online only, right? Office solution.
I think it is. Yeah.
Like Google Docs.
Like Google Docs. Yeah. And I have to say, this is very much a business issue, not an issue for individuals. I think one of the more interesting trends in recent years, and this really started on the Mac. There's something unique about the nature of the Mac market, where instead of these sort of integrated solutions with lots of stuff, you're getting these little apps that just do one thing, like a markdown editor type thing, or a note taker, a calendar app, or whatever that kind of a thing is. And I think in the case of individuals, there are enough consumer services and little apps like that, I think people might be slowly weaning themselves off of Office. I mean, for all we know, I don't use Office as much of Office as
you don't need to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Don't need to. But there are better things, just in the context of this show. We switched from Microsoft OneNote to Notion, I think last year. I had 12 years of notes for this show, but I also had 20 years of usage of OneNote overall at that time. And, it takes a lot to make someone, switch like that. In my case, what that was it not working, right? It didn't allow for reliable, co-editing, right? We couldn't do the live edit thing. But I don't think I'm unique in that regard. And I bet there are a lot of individuals out there that are kind of moving along. Like, I still buy Office 360 or Microsoft 365 now because it's such a good deal and I want the storage.
Yeah, they're smart to make it. It's less than $8 a month.
It's also like bundling. Right? Are you suggesting that bundling is smart?
Oh, whoops. No, they don't bundle. No, of course
not.
But
it is smart, and maybe they need to be divested of this asset. I don't know. I'm not saying they have to, but
I don't know.
So we'll see. We'll see where any of this goes. But interesting. That's all.
What a world! What a world!
Yeah, what a world! Exactly.
All right. It's one of those things where I agree with it, but only with great trepidation.
Right. That's the point. And the divesting part is a very good example of that, because it's like, I do agree with that. It should absolutely happen. And then you think through it and you're like,
but how?
I don't see how they could possibly do this.
All right. We have more to talk about. Before we do, let me get in a word for our fine sponsor. Product you should absolutely know about if you use Okta. It's called Collide. Collide is a device trust solution for companies with Okta. Collide ensures if a device isn't trusted and secure, it can't log into your cloud apps. It's kind of the missing piece of Okta, right? You're authenticating the user with Okta, but then what if the user's driving an insecure machine right into the heart of your network? If you work in security or IT and your company uses Okta, this message is for you. Have you noticed for the last few years, the majority of data breaches and hacks you read about have something in common? Think about it. It's the employees, right? Sometimes an employee's device gets hacked because of unpatched software. You know, they're running a 3-year-old version of Plex. It's never been patched. And it turns out there's a big hole in it. That gets the bad guy into the laptop, and then the laptop gets into your network, and reputational damage, huge costs. Sometimes an employee will leave sensitive data in an insecure place, an S3 bucket, or maybe even just their download folder. And it seems like every day a hacker breaks in using credentials they've phished from an employee. Happens all the time. The problem here isn't, though, important, is not your end users. It's the solutions that you use that are supposed to prevent these breaches. It does not have to be this way. Imagine, if you will, a world where only secure devices can access your cloud apps. In this world, phished credentials, useless to hackers. And you can manage every OS, including Linux, Mac, Windows, and Linux, all from a single dashboard. Best of all, you can get employees to become your allies in the fight for cybersecurity. They fix their own device security issues without creating more work for your IT team. It's a win all around. The good news is you don't have to imagine that world. Just start using Collide, Kolide. Go to collide.com/WW, and you can book an on-demand demo today. See how it works for yourself. Collide, KOLIDE.com/WW. Please use WW so they know you saw it here. It's a brilliant idea. Collide, Collide.com/dub. Leo Laporte, Paul Thurrott, Richard Campbell. He's like, is he traveling? I forgot what it is. Is he going?
He looks like Obi-Wan Kenobi's ghost.
He's right behind you. Oh no. Yeah, he's gone off to.
No, he's here. He's actually signed in.
Is he here?
Yeah.
Should we invite him in? No, wait a minute. No. Let the right one in. Don't let the wrong one in. I don't know. Signal us.
We'll have to stop our constant hazing of him now. But
maybe he's just listening in, but doesn't feel like he's in a position to.
I don't know. He signed into the Zoom. I think he wants to try.
I just see a please. We're working on it. I see a please stand by. Message him. Say, is this? Ask him a question only he would know the answer to.
Well, I mean,
why not drink?
Right.
Macallan 10.
What is the best possible Cheetos alternative?
There you go. Only he would know the answer. Is that correct?
Well, he would know the correct answer, that's for sure.
Okay. Well, is he there, John? Oh, yeah. Okay. We're going to let him take over. I'm going to pod him up. Hello, Richard. You weren't supposed to be here. Where are you?
I'm in the Denver airport. I don't know if there's enough bandwidth to make this work. I'm laid over for 3 hours with flight delays.
Oh, well, we'll be glad to entertain you while you're stuck.
As I already messaged Paul, there is no Macallan 10.
You see? It is him. I knew it was him. Now, what's the only suitable Cheetos replacement?
Oh, why Hawkins Cheesies? Don't be crazy. Of course, that's
okay.
The only thing.
All right, he's legit.
He's legit. Let him in. You do look like Obi-Wan's ghost. Now I see what you were saying, Paul. He's.
No.
It's okay. We'll take it.
A little bleached out.
We'll take it. Are you? Where are you on your way to?
I'm just a force projection.
Where are you?
You kind of are. I'm comfortable with that.
Where are you headed to?
I'm headed to Billings. We're fishing the Yellowstone.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Oh, well, wonderful. So we just concluded talking about the EU. Anything you want to say about that?
They've all gone mad.
Save and duplicate. Okay, I'm fixing. You two talk amongst yourselves while I fix this.
Did we move on to the next topic or just talk about anything else?
You can go to the next topic. I don't know if he's had the luxury.
Yeah.
To AirPod. Right, you're in the AirPod. Right.
Yeah. Well, so Microsoft announced Windows Copilot at Build in May.
Yeah.
Promised they would release it in June, which we all knew was insiders, not obviously the final release. Every 7 to 10 days in June, I have been meticulously berating them on Twitter for not, it's June, whatever date, where's my Copilot? And then on the second to last day of the month, they released it to the Jeb channel. And by released, I mean released with an asterisk because they're Microsoft and they only released it to a small subset of those people who are in the dev channel using literally a controlled feature rollout because, God damn. So that's what they do. Speaking of which, it will require Microsoft Edge to be signed in to your Microsoft account, and you'll be using that. You can use an Azure AD account as well. So yeah, like everything else that's on the Windows 11 taskbar by default, you can remove the icon. You can use a Windows key shortcut to access it. Interestingly, it's Windows key plus C, which you may remember used to be for Cortana. So if you're not sure that grave's been hammered shut, this should seal that deal.
So to be clear, Windows Copilot is not the same as GitHub Copilot. It's not going to help me do some coding.
I've told you the story about going to a hamburger restaurant in France, and I described it as someone from France went to the United States, went to McDonald's and said, my God, this is a brilliant business. We need to replicate this in France. But rather than taking any notes or photos, they just went back and worked off their memory. That's what Windows Copilot is to GitHub Copilot. Like, they have the same name. They're vaguely...
But you have a Royale with cheese instead of a Big Mac.
Yeah, but the one in France is slightly off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Royale avec fromage. Okay, good.
It's called Quick Burger, by the way. If you're ever in France, you can enjoy that. So Windows Quick Burger, or Copilot, is... first of all, it's in a preview state, right? So it doesn't have all the features yet. But, I got to say, it's pretty clear where this is going. And just for you in the audience who are afraid of AI and think it's going to take over the planet, I beg you to look at this because you will feel so much better about the future. This is really just not much of anything.
Okay.
Frankly. And I don't think
Is it just that it was rushed to market, that they tried to make your deadline because you were so upset about it?
Well, you know more than anybody actually about Microsoft and marching orders, right? So we know back when Gates was running the show and .NET was the big new thing, everything had to be .NET, right? And if you kind of flash forward to today, you can see very clearly AI is everything. This is the market cap. We got to get this stuff going. Everything is Copilot. And they went out to all the product teams and said, you're making a Copilot, just figure it out. And, the guys in Windows, I mean, this is, normally I'm pretty critical of this team, but I got to say, I don't know what they would do with this exactly. There's not, what are you going to do? Like, this is basically Cortana 2.0. Like, what things can this do to kind of help you as you use Windows, right? So it can do the stuff we already have.
So they just rebranded Cortana. That's not a bad play.
This is very strongly a follow-up to Cortana, yeah.
So it can tell it can create it can create a Spotify playlist for me.
I bet it can't do that. But
I remember when the Internet Tidal Wave letter came out under Gates, and every product team had to do something Internet. And for the SQL Server, that ended up being able to output a table as HTML.
Yeah, in HTML. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah. So here you have one of the most complex products on earth. It uses all these online resources, transactions, and everything, and it's like they're doing the equivalent of a tic-tac-toe board, And it's like, look, Microsoft Word very briefly was an internet web page or blog editor, right? Remember that? There was a lot of a lot of stuff they kind of stepped back from. So in this case, I would just say, this is going to be one of those things most people are probably going to look at once and just leave off, frankly, especially in the beginning.
This was a perfect time to put something in Canary. Like, why wouldn't you put it out in Canary? Like, don't you see a schism between delivery mechanisms inside of the insiders?
Yeah.
Like the stage delivery guys and the Canary guys, I think they're different people.
This is in the military, like skipping up the ranks and going, skipping by your superior officer and going to someone above his head. It's weird. I feel like there's a natural order of things. I agree with you 100%. These should start in Canary and they should work your way down. Now, I am working off this theory that Canary is Windows 12. So I guess if you accept that to be the truth, which Microsoft has never said, then maybe dev is the place to start. And I don't know. We'll see. I do expect this to appear in the next version of Windows 11, right? This September, October.
I'm more cynical. I think there's literally different teams that have different access to the deployment. And some of them have access to Canary, and some of them only have access to stage deployment. And they haven't bothered to consolidate it.
Yeah. It does feel messy to me and disorganized. But anyway, this is whatever. It's Dev Channel. So there's kind of a list of things it can do. It's not a particularly compelling list or whatever. Some of it, one thing you can do, I should say, is it's very much like the Bing AI integration in Microsoft Edge. So if you've ever used that, the initial view of this sidebar will look a lot like that. It has the same, this conversation can be more creative, more professional, more whatever. You can ask it questions just like you do on the web or in that Edge sidebar. You can have it create an image for you, although I found that to be incredibly limited, and I'll get to that in a moment. But like, think about like the three, like I'm going to call it 4 examples that Microsoft gives themselves to explain what you can do that's related to Windows are such things as you type this out, by the way, you don't say this, you type it. Change to dark mode. Turn on do not disturb. Take a screenshot. Summarize this website, which, by the way, I never got to work. That has to be in Microsoft Edge. It has to be the active tab, of course. That's, as expected. The thing is, my biggest complaint, is it my biggest complaint? One of my complaints about voice, like Google Assistant, voice assistants, is that I will tell it to do something and then they check back with me to see if I'm sure. And then I have to talk to it again, where I just want you to do the damn thing, So if I say, if I type in, I can't say change to dark mode, it will does a little thinking thing. And it's like, oh, it looks like you want to change to dark to dark mode. Is that correct? Yeah, that's what I wrote. There's with a voice you could possibly have misspoke, but I don't see how with text, if it's exactly what the thing is, how it could be wrong, but it makes sure. I find that to be annoying. And then it's, kind of dumb. If you think about what people think of as dark mode is an oversimplification, because the reality is that there's actually 3 different things going on in your computer that sort of control what I think most people think is dark mode, meaning you can have dark mode applied to the OS. You can have dark mode applied to the apps that support it, right? The modern apps that support that kind of a thing. And you can also have it applied to the wallpaper, right? Those 3 things combined are sort of like a theme almost. There's more to themes, but that's partially a theme. So I think when people say like, I want to turn on dark mode, I guess it is at least like if you're using the default Windows 11 wallpaper, it will do the OS and the apps. It does both. It does not change the wallpaper. Of course, you didn't ask it to, right? I mean, that's what computers do. They do what you tell them. But I mean, I think the issue here is some people maybe might have a bright wallpaper for light mode, but they might want a darker one for dark mode. It's not that smart, It's not that smart. And that's how it's not really AI or machine learning or whatever, even though we're using these terms like they mean anything. Because if this thing actually understood you, if this thing was actually learning, it would say, hey, when you turn on dark mode yourself, it looks like you're actually changing the theme. Is that what you want me to do? It seems like that would answer, it seems like that's what you want. But it doesn't, it will never.
Yeah, no, sometimes LLM means limited language model.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is just parsing text ultimately.
Exactly.
It's hooks Thank you.
Into That's the exactly right.
Yep. They're still quite limited.
Right. This reeks of they've been directed to do something and they were like, and there is an opportunity in Windows to, I don't know, tell people about functionality they don't even know. Like the vast majority of people don't know about Alt Tab, which is crazy, which means they don't know about lots of other stuff, and we kind of get into this conversation about how annoying it is when Windows or some other Microsoft products tells me about something I'm either already using or have B explicitly turned off, But there is a learning moment that might occur here, that could occur here. I mean, it'd be kind of interesting.
And this is arguably the most compelling feature of Copilot as a concept, is you have a vitrified UI, right? One that's so mature that when you change it, you make all your incumbent users furious. And so now you get to introduce a new UI that the novices can easily grasp and that won't interfere with the existing one.
Well, we keep referencing that Stevie Batish thing at Build and how this is happening in stages. And this is just the first stage. It's that thing that sits next to the thing you're already using. They're not changing the basic UI to accommodate it. It's just, how far can we go with this thing that's a thing on the side? I don't know. It's not clear to me.
We've run out of ideas for address bars and right clicks. So this is just another place for you to pour your energy into. But you've got a ton of functionality. You just haven't surfaced it.
Right.
Not in a way that anybody can find.
No. And if you want to be really cynical, it's pretty clear this is yet another vector for forcing people to use Microsoft Edge and thus Microsoft's online services and advertising, even when they've chosen another browser, because the Windows Copilot is not like this native Windows app. It's just the Bing UI. It's almost certainly like a web thing. It's almost certainly Microsoft Edge, right? And you ask it questions, and Bing is invoked. And when you ask it to do something, if you go to the web from it, it will go to Edge, right? It's the Windows desktop is getting a little crowded with avenues that all lead to Edge, right? From search highlights to the widgets now to this thing. It's like, what's left, And
now you're hinting at the real problem with it trying to help direct your work, is that it's always going to direct you to Edge for everything.
Right. So, I use this thing and I went through all Microsoft's examples. I did some of the things I do on my own when I test these stupid AI tools. I could never get Summarize This Website to work, which I found to be amazing. And I tried that so many different ways. The only thing that sort of worked is I could say Summarize This Website and then paste a URL. It's, sort of. The one that really failed for me, though, was they used the example, make me a picture of a serene koi fish pond with lily pads. Okay. So I usually I'll go to DALL-E or one of the other tools, and I'll say something like, create me an oil painting in the style of Frida Kahlo of Mexico City or something like that. And when I did that with this tool, it told me that it could not create an oil painting. It was an AI bot thing. It doesn't create oil paintings. It says something else. So I had to reword it, and I just had to do a picture. And then they came up with these Day of the Dead pictures that had kind of nothing to do with what I was talking about. The person was in fact standing in front of like a Mexico City backdrop. The question is there a certain
difference between literally and figuratively, even though Webster's doesn't?
Yeah. So, unimpressive is what I guess is the overall impression that I got. Look, it's going to get better. It's an early preview. They're not giving it to everybody, right? It's a CFR now. It's only in the dev channel. Presumably, it will expand to other channels. Presumably, it will hit Windows 11 this fall. And by that point, hopefully, we'll have more features and some that kind of make sense. But there's nothing vital here. I guess the argument is if all it does that's useful is provide an interface to that Bing chat stuff, right? Which it does. It's just like Edge does if you turn on that Bing sidebar thing. Is that okay? And it's like, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Honestly, I wouldn't use it or like it, but I don't mind it being there, and I don't mind other people using it, obviously, as long as I can turn it off. But, you hear Copilot and you think, here we go. We're entering the 21st century here. And this just seems really basic to me. It doesn't seem sophisticated. It absolutely doesn't seem like AI beyond the.
Oh, no, this is a grade 8 rushing their homework in before it gets called for.
Yeah.
The real question is, how many APIs can you hook to, and how do you hook language to them? And more relevantly, it's like inventorying the apps that you have on the machine and saying, hey, when I say edit a photo, what app do I mean?
Right. That's right. And that's what I'm talking about. In other words, so many products I've used, whether they could be things like Fitbits or whatever they are, will claim the more you use it, the better it's going to get, And I would like to I've been using Windows for 30 years. Could you figure it out? Like I know that there are no hooks in Windows today for it to have an understanding of me, but we've gone from a system where Windows 8 started with this fairly sophisticated way of syncing settings, which I thought was really good. And then they backtracked from that in Windows 10 and then again in Windows 11. And to me, those are the foundational steps toward Windows actually understanding you and the way you like things. But there's nothing in Windows that actually understands me. I know that because I see ads for things I already have. I see ads that mean nothing to me. I see suggestions for products I either don't use or long ago mastered. I get suggestions for saving documents in Microsoft Word that when they're saved. There's no smarts behind any of this stuff. And maybe there will be someday. Maybe I'm just missing the point or something. I don't know, but this feels like that. It's just like more of that. So some people will probably love it, but I just don't quite, I don't know.
You're just not some people. You're special.
I think I'm people. I don't know.
Well, how do we try it again? Is it?
So I'm going to get to that in the tip at the end of the show.
Save it for the tip, man.
Yeah. But the first step is to try it at all. You have to install the dev channel build.
The first step is admitting you have no power
at
all over your AI companion.
Yeah. Well, and then no power over whether you get this feature or not either, because that's the way the inside program works.
Because you don't. Okay.
Really irritating. Yeah.
You may or may not have access.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Only the higher power knows. All right. What else you got?
So this happened while you were doing your ad. So I haven't
Holy cow. It's hot. Really it's fresh. It's just off the ticker tape. He ripped it off. And go ahead, read that hot news.
I really wish you hadn't sold it that much. It's not that interesting. But
okay.
Microsoft took Windows 365 for Frontline out of preview, meaning it's generally available. So Windows 365, of course, is the Windows in the cloud, the cloud PC deal. The idea here is I always think of retail. It's not just retail, but retail is a simple example. You have a retail store. There's one device that everyone uses, and they do stuff on it. And you can all have your own sign-in. The version of Windows that's running is actually up in the cloud somewhere. That device could be an Android device. It could be anything. It doesn't really matter.
Frontline is a point-of-sale system?
No, it's not. I'm sorry. That's why I didn't want to say it that way. I'm sorry. No, it's not a point of sale. It's for any commercial environment in which there are multiple people, but only one or a very few computers or devices. But everyone needs their own sign-in. They have their own stuff, and they're not all getting their own computer.
You're not getting a computer. Bad news. Here's the good news.
Yeah. One of the ways you can do that is you have a cheap device instead of a really expensive computer.
Yeah.
And you license everybody for Windows 365 Frontline, which, by the way, is it's a little expensive, but $42 per month for 3 users. That's the first time I've seen that kind of thing. So you can do the math on what that is per user, but you have to do it on 3 users at a time, and it goes up from there. But this is in addition to the more kind of what I would call traditional enterprise versions of Windows 365.
Okay.
It's in it for a workplace, like a normal office or whatever. So anyway, it just happened. That's probably all the attention I'm ever going to give it, but it's out in the world. So if you want it,
here it is.
Yep.
Come and get it.
Yeah.
But you better hurry because you don't know if you got it. Or something. I don't know.
Sounds like you got it.
How's it going in the airport there, Richard? Nothing.
Well, the weather's good. I can give you that much at least, right?
Why are you stuck for 5 hours?
Flying United. It sounds like you're flying United.
Yeah, he must be, right?
I am flying United. No question.
There you go.
He's in the hub.
It.
And his
well, no, by which I mean there are flight delays. The United is
notorious.
They're not doing good right now.
They've been having an especially exciting weekend. So
yes, right. That's right. And you're also flying on the busiest day of the summer, the day after the 4th of July.
Is it? Oh, wow.
Yeah, for flights. Yep.
So your flies right now are somewhere stuck in the many, many miles of the Denver airport luggage system. I remember when they opened that airport. It was, it was crazy. It's big.
I think the baggage area looks like that scene at the end of the Raiders of the Lost Ark, where it's just boxes they just go off into the distance.
They also had that software problem where they lost every bag for a week. If your bag went into Denver, it was gone, and it took a long time to untangle that. Same thing happened at Terminal 5 in Heathrow.
Are you in the Polaris Lounge?
I am just in the regular,
the everyday human being lounge.
Yeah, it turns out there's not a first class to Billings. Who knew?
Billings, of course not. Beautiful Billings, Montana, but it's going to be worth it because I hear a river runs through it.
Well,
it's going to be so awesome. Oh, wait.
Turns out that's most cities.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a good point. In fact, I just made that comment to my wife about Mexico City, how interesting it was that there was no river going through the middle. But of course there was. At one time it was a lake. But today, Mexico City is this giant city that really, there's water there. I mean, sort of. But
was it a lake or a swamp? Can we be?
No, it was a lake.
Oh,
They built the Aztecs built like an island basically for there and turned it into a city.
Wow.
Yeah, and then series of floating structures. Like apparently it was quite spectacular.
Wow.
Yeah.
And very defensible.
You can still take a little boat ride through the mangroves
to the old,
and see the old stuff. Yeah.
And we did. I held a giant snake.
That's probably how I know that exists.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But it's just a tiny part of it, and it's not anything like it used to be.
No, they built it up on top of it. It's like Rome. You dig down, and lo and behold.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a whole city down there. Microsoft's licensings. So a little story.
Yeah.
Steve Gibson makes a program called SpinRite. Hasn't updated it actually since 2004, but it runs on DOS. Interestingly enough,
right.
And so, back in 2004, he just had something. I think it was called FreeDOS, that was free. I think open source. Anyway, maybe he licensed it. No, it's open source. But I guess now he needs something else. So he has bought a eternal license to a DOS, some sort of DOS clone. Yeah.
By the way, if you go to HP or Dell and maybe Lenovo, you can, in fact, I don't know if you have to be a business or if you can do this as an individual, you can build a computer that runs FreeDOS and not Windows if you want to. And you'll save, $35. Like you could just, they don't ship it with nothing, but if you don't want Windows, they'll ship it with FreeDOS. Not in all cases, but I just ran into this in a configurator yesterday.
Yeah.
That's a choice.
I think something's going on with FreeDOS, like it doesn't work on, maybe it doesn't work on UEFI or something, but he had to get a new version.
What a goofy problem to have.
I know. So he actually licensed, and then I think I remember reading that a couple of weeks after he licensed, it got a perpetual license for this DOS clone. I think I heard that they went out of business, but I might be wrong on that. Anyway, he owns it now. It's on him.
So interesting.
Yeah, I'll have to ask him anyway. So but the reason I mention this is DOS is in the news.
Well, it's not in the news, but it's something I'm writing about. So I've been going down this kind of tech nostalgia thing lately, right? And that will come up during the app pick at the end of the show too. And in doing so, I've been watching a lot of documentaries. I've been reading and rereading books I've already read. And there was a story that came up. I was like, this is classic. Everyone knows the story of Microsoft and how they became successful, right? That IBM came to them, they licensed BASIC, they licensed MS-DOS, which they bought from someone else. And that the genius behind this decision was they get money every time any unit goes out the window, the door. And they reserve the right to also sell that product to other companies. And so when Compaq reverse engineered the BIOS and the IBM PC, the PC market was born, and now they had all these new customers to sell to, and Microsoft shot to fame, fortune, and infamy, right? Everyone knows this story. What few people know is the story of before MS-DOS was a thing, what they were licensing was BASIC, that they went to Commodore and other companies that had 6502 microprocessors to license BASIC. And when that happened, Bill Gates ran into someone who was even a bigger dick than he is. And that guy was Jack Tramiel.
The great Jack Tramiel from Commodore. Oh, my God.
Legend. But he's forgotten today, right? Because they're gone. Yeah. But what people don't kind of remember is that Commodore won the home computer wars. They sold more computers than everybody.
Yep.
And through a series of but Jack Tramiel being Jack Tramiel, but when the first of those computers, which was the PET, was in development, Microsoft found out about that and contacted them and said, hey, we have a 6502 BASIC. Would you like to license it? And they said, yeah, sure. Let's talk about it. And so they had meetings. Bill Gates met with Jack Tramiel, and Jack Tramiel said, I'm not licensing it. I'll pay you, but I'm not going to license it. I don't want to ever, I don't want anyone to make money every time I sell something. And this is because Jack Tramiel almost went out of business with Commodore in the days of the calculators, because TI was vertically integrated, made their own processors, and could undercut them on price. And so he said, I'm going to buy, he bought MOS Technologies, which makes the 6502 processor. He said, we're going to be vertically integrated, and this is never going to happen to me again. So anyway, Gates amazingly agreed to this, and they paid them $25,000 for a perpetual license to BASIC. They could do anything they wanted to it. Microsoft was free to sell to other companies, and they did. And the only deal was like, look, if you ever upgrade this thing, like you release new computers, you just have to license the changes back to us so we can also sell those to your competitors. And Commodore said, sure, because Jack Tramiel knew he would never make any changes to this BASIC. And what this jerk did was, for the next 3 generations of computers, ship the same exact out-of-date version of BASIC on everything they ever did. So whether you had a PET or a VIC-20 or a Commodore 64 or whatever else, any 8-bit computer, it's the same garbage version of BASIC. It was terrible until the 128. Eventually, I think they finally woke up to this. But the thing is, they paid $25,000 for this, and this thing, they sold more computers than everybody. And Gates realized, he's like, I just left millions and millions of dollars on the table. And so by the time IBM came to them and said, we want you to create an OS, he's like, yeah, we'll license it to you, and we're going to make sure we can give it to everyone else too. And that's kind of why that happened. He was so burned by Jack Tramiel, this person no one even remembers, that's what he did. The thing that's interesting about the story, beside the fact that no one kind of knows about it, is the fact that the reason nobody knows about it is because none of the histories that have been written about Bill Gates or Microsoft mention this. It's not in the book Gates by Stephen Maness and Paul Anders. It's not in any of the books. Hard Drive. It's not. No one. That book, the first one, the Maness book, never mentions Jack Tramiel and only mentions Commodore a couple of times, and does so in a very disparaging way. These El Cheapo computers that were just like a kind of a joke before we had real computers. So I thought that was I just thought it was an interesting story that there's this big chunk of Microsoft, or there's a part of Microsoft history that no one's really ever heard of, that actually I think had a major impact on what they did later, and led to them becoming dominant, because they were never going to make an OS.
It wasn't a branded version of BASIC. Like that was they called it Commodore BASIC.
They called it Commodore BASIC, yeah. Yep. Yeah. But it was Microsoft BASIC. And the thing is, like, if you went to an Atari or maybe not Atari, but an Apple or a TI or whatever it was, any of these other companies, the same commands always worked everywhere. Like they,
sure.
They were all
labeled Microsoft BASIC. The first time I ever saw Bill Gates in person was at Heathkit in Vancouver. Nice. And he was trying to convince us to buy the level 2 Heathkit because it could run Microsoft BASIC.
Sure.
Because 16K.
The other fun part of this story is that Bill Gates actually worked on this BASIC for Commodore. He didn't write it himself, but he did some work on it. And he put an Easter egg in. So there's this great story from the Commodore engineers where they're at, I think it was Winter CES 1978. And Gates sneaks into their booth, walks up to one of the PET computers and starts typing on the computer. And they're like, what the hell is this guy doing? And he typed in like a wait 6502, 1. And then what came up was Microsoft, all caps. And he's like, nice. And he cleared the screen and he left. So what he was doing was making sure, like, he could always tell when it was his BASIC.
If it's legit. Right? Yeah.
So this engineer who had worked on the BASIC, he's like, I've been over every line of code in this thing. How the hell I didn't say anything like this. It took him months, but he finally figured out. He did a pretty ingenious thing. He kind of messed around with the ASCII codes and shifted a couple bits. But the thing is, it also caused like a major bug in BASIC.
Oh God.
So that was unrelated. Like, they had no idea these things were related. So this guy just fixed it. So at the 1979 Winter CES, Gates again sneaks into the booth. The guy's like, okay, here he goes. And he typed the exact same thing. And the quote is, he goes, I remember Gates walked up to one of the machines, typed that in, didn't do it anything more. And he didn't do it anymore. And then he looked around and he's like, he was kind of tweaked about it because he had spent all that time and effort hiding it. So they'd kind of, outsmarted him or whatever.
That's awesome. That's a great story.
Yeah, classic. Yeah. And it's a great story. But, like I said, Microsoft emerged victorious from all this stuff overall, like, obviously, right? So when you read a story about Microsoft or about Gates, or you read a book or whatever, it's all about all the awesome stuff he did. You don't really hear the little times there were setbacks or whatever, because things could have been quite different.
Bill's real skill was screwing the opposition, right? Honestly,
yeah.
But he could code. I mean, let's not forget he could code in the early days.
Sure.
He wrote some good code.
Yeah, and he did. He
Yeah.
contributed to BASIC.
Yeah. He's very proud of his BASIC. The programmers at Workbook has a chapter with him and has some of his code, and he was so proud of how few lines he was able to do something really awesome. I can't remember what it is. I'll have to bring that book in. Mine's pretty tattered, but what a great book. I think it's long out of print.
I had it.
I know you did. We've talked about it before. Yeah.
This is a problem because there are a lot of books that I would like to get back, and they're not available electronically.
No.
And I really don't want books, and I want to be able to search and find things, and it's a huge problem. Huge problem.
That's why
one of the best books of all time about this era is called The Home Computer Wars. It's written by a guy who worked at Commodore. And the premise is Microsoft, or I keep saying Microsoft, Commodore won the home computer wars. And they did. I mean, they absolutely did. They sold more units. They made more revenue.
Unfortunately, they were really crappy computers.
No, the Commodore 64 was fantastic for the most part. I mean, all of them had problems. And Jack Tramiel was a jerk. He was just so cheap. And he didn't even understand computers. He just, whatever. But he got back a TI, by the way. TI lowered the cost of their TI 99-4A, and so Jack looked at it and he said, "Okay, we're going to lower our price even further." And literally the next day, no, this was during the Commodore 64 era, but the next day, TI exited the computer business.
Yeah,
like literally, Commodore lowered their price so low they were like, "We can't do this anymore," and he did to them what TI had done to them with calculators. So he got revenge on them too.
Yeah,
he's a good guy. He's probably going to be sainted, I think, after he's boy.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, by the way, are these Thurrott Premium subscription articles that you're writing? Is this one?
That one, yeah, the nostalgia ones are, yeah.
I love them. And that's a great reason people should go out and buy the premium. It's not expensive. How much is a premium subscription? It's $40.
$7 a month, or
okay.
I think I would know this.
It's the same as Club Twit, $84.
Yeah.
But you have a discount for the year. Yeah, I buy it every year. Well worth it.
We'll have a sale soon too. I think sometime in July we're going to have a sale.
Oh, don't tell anybody.
No, it's fine.
It's secret.
It's fine.
You can see the stub. I'm not logged in, but where you see that diamond upgraded premium, you push that button. So you get to read the whole thing, because this is great stuff. A little plug for Paul and therot.com. Upgrade to premium. That's my suggestion. You can read the whole article. Will this go into Windows everywhere? Probably not, because it's DOS, huh?
No, it's too. I wanted to blow by the prehistory stuff pretty quick.
Yeah.
Pre-Windows.
There, I logged in. So if you read really quickly, you can catch it. There you go. Here's the whole story. Scrolling by. Now, see, somebody will slow it down, and then I'll
It'll end up.
There's Bill. This is why he could walk up.
Yeah, because you look like nothing.
Who's that 12-year-old walking up to the computer? What's he doing? Just Bill. God, this is 1979. So he would have been maybe, 27, 28, but he looks like he's 18.
Yeah, it looks like he's 12. Yeah, exactly.
Looks like a kid.
Little kid. Yeah.
This is the era in which he would, his mom would ride up in the elevator with him, take his glasses, clean it, and put it back in his face.
Dad used to run the slide deck for him, right? The slide projector.
Dang.
Yep.
Dang, Bill. All right, what else you got? What else should we? Wait, should I do a break? Let me just look here.
Yeah, let's do a break.
Do a break.
You gotta go.
Go do something. Okay.
I have another podcast I'm recording. I'll be right back.
Okay, go do that other podcast. Hey, Richard, I'm glad you could join us from the Denver airport where he's stuck in a layover. It's good to see you, though. I appreciate it.
It's weird. As weird as it might be. I hope I have enough bandwidth.
Yeah, I think there's latency is all. I mean, the sound's it's a little tubby, the sound, because you're in one of those study carols at the lounge.
Yeah, me and 250 of my closest friends.
Okay, we'll do some studying while I talk about our sponsor, ACI Learning. We love these guys. They're more than just a sponsor. They sponsored our whole studio. And you may say, well, how'd you get to be such good friends with ACI? Well, you may remember for the last 10 years, we've been talking about IT Pro. Good friends with the founders of IT Pro. We went out and visited their Gainesville studio some years ago. Lisa and I. It was so much fun when they did that grand opening. And Don and Tim are still there, and they have joined with ACI Learning, which really expands their capabilities. As part of the ACI Learning family, IT Pro can do so much more with their highly entertaining, bingeable, short-form training for all areas of IT. More than 7,000 hours to choose from. And, of course, now they've got Audit Pro. So if you want to get into audit and compliance, they've got that. Cybersecurity. 30% of ACI's learners are MSPs. I did not know this. That's almost a third are what we call managed service providers. So if you're an MSP, ACI Learning is here to help you train your team. MSPs love the ACI Learning Practice Labs. You can test and experiment. On any HTML5 browser, you can set up a Windows server, desktop clients. You could even do it on a Chromebook, Mac, Windows, Linux. So you can test and experiment before you deploy new apps or updates. It's also a great way to learn. I mean, that's how they originally created it, was as a learning environment, but it can also be used as a way to test stuff without compromising your live system. One of the other great things at ACI Learning is the practice exams. You can prepare for challenging certs with practice questions. Take the test as many times as you want to make sure you're ready before you take the real thing. And I think that's a huge help. Here's a testimonial from a happy MSP team leader. Quote, I had 110 engineers in the field, and we had dozens of IT Pro accounts. Last year alone, they passed over 40 certs. Wouldn't you love that for your team? Teams love it too, because IT Pro's engaging content, over 7,000 hours now, has this incredible completion rate. I think it's 80%. The industry average is about 30%. Plus the ACI Learning Pro portal means you control every aspect of your team's training. You can see how they're doing. You assign and unassign, even individual episodes. Of course, they have full transcripts too, so you know exactly what you're assigning. You can see monthly usage reports, all graphically demonstrate. So that's great for sharing with the higher ups to prove that you're getting the ROI. You can see viewing time, courses viewed, tracks completed. Stay compliant with regulations. Identify potential risks and weaknesses before they become problematic. ACI Learning holds ISO certification. That means you're getting the best world-class training, the training your team deserves. ACI Learning will be revving up the tech world during Black Hat this year. It's exciting, literally and figuratively. You don't want to miss the ACI booth if you're going to Black Hat. It's booth 1589. They'll be there August 5th through the 10th. 1589. Stop by, say hi, and learn about something new. They've just announced Cyber Skills, their new cybersecurity awareness training, and Insights, which is their new skills gap analysis tool. Ooh, that's useful. ACI Learning is really an incredible company doing amazing stuff that your team will love. Their courses are easy to navigate. In fact, why don't you try it for yourself and then bring the whole team along? For individuals, the offer code is TWIT30, TWIT30. That gives you 30% off a standard or premium individual IT Pro membership. And, of course, they have great discounts for teams. Learn more about ACI Learning's premium training options across audit, IT, and cybersecurity readiness at go.acilearning.com/twit for teams from 2 to 1,000. And the volume discounts start as little as 5 seats. Fill out the form at go.acilearning.com/twit. Get more information. You can even get a free 2-week training trial for your team, which is enough to finish a course and really give you some idea of how great these things are. Go.acilearning.com/twit. And don't forget individuals TWIT30, the offer code. We return you now to the Denver airport, where luggage is already in progress. No, it's time once again to continue our hejira through the ups and downs of Microsoft with Paul Thurrott. He's in Kunji for the day. Then he's going to go to the beautiful Mexico City tomorrow. And Richard Campbell, who is going fly fishing in Montana. Lucky fella. We did a little AI, but let's do a little bit more. What do you say, Paul?
Yeah, this is as little AI as the last thing we talked about. But Microsoft announced this week that they're adding AI-powered shopping features to Bing and the Edge web browser, specifically, AI-powered shopping features. So specifically, AI-generated buying guides across both, review summaries, which I think everyone's doing these days, and then a new price match feature, which is specific to the U.S.
I wonder if it'll look different at all.
I wonder if it'll recommend a bunch of Microsoft products.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, I wonder all kinds of things. Is this really AI? Is this?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Actually, if AI could make recommendation engines better, that would be a huge victory because they're terrible.
Yeah. I mean, on some level, assuming the reviews that are out there are real to start with, summarizing them is not a horrible idea.
No, that
Google
AI would
Maps
be good
does
at that.
this already. Yeah. I don't know how they do it, but it's fine. It's in for whatever it's worth. I'm not an Edge fan. I hope I've made that clear. But among the few things that people do cite when they want to use Edge, the shopping stuff is actually one of the big ones.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of shopping features in the browser already. Like this is just an augmentation of what they already have. Coupons, cashback, price history, etc. It's funny because I only sort of use this when I'm writing the book or updating the book. And so the 3 times I've had to update this chapter so far, write or update, I get completely different results every time. It's which is kind of a problem. You're like, I know this example showed me price history, so I'll go to this exact thing, and now it doesn't. Yeah. It's a little annoying, but
I don't know how you write a book about Windows these days. It's just a moving target. It's crazy.
It's like writing a book about Jell-O. It just you touch it and it changes. I don't know. It's confusing. It's hard. So anyway, that's happening. I don't think that's a big deal, but I don't think there's nothing wrong with this. Is fine. These are just basic functional.
You know what people are making a big deal about, which is hysterical, is Google saying, "Oh, we're going to scrape the internet for our AI. Everything public is fair game."
Right.
Well, duh.
And I was going to say, if you follow Google at all, your response to that should be right.
Yeah.
So
of course.
Look, how did you think search engines work?
Yeah.
So the thing I will give Google some credit for, and I think even if you're super cynical about Google, which maybe you should be, they actually document the changes to their privacy policy when they make the changes. So there's a version of the privacy policy that actually has markup in it showing you what they added or removed. So you can actually go and look at what they did.
Oh, that's actually cool. Here. I love that.
Yeah, it's really well done.
It's a little diff.
Yeah, it's nice. And I think that's a nice bit of transparency. It's I don't know if they're required to do it. I've never seen anyone do that before. I think it's pretty cool. Anyhow, not surprisingly, now that they have Bard and other AI products coming, they're just kind of augmenting the sentences they already have in the privacy policy to note that they're going to use publicly available information to help train this stuff. And it kind of says explicitly, if your business's information appears on a website, we may index and display it on Google services. Yeah, that's what's gotten you in trouble in Europe, by the way. But yes, this is right. The problem that news publishers have the world around is that you're scraping their data and not paying them enough, or not paying them at all in many cases.
I guess the difference, look, any search engine does that. Bing has to look at all the contents of every page that's publicly available in order to produce their search results, just like Google. I guess the difference is
but
then it's going to take what it's learned from these sites and regurgitate it.
The difference is theft, right? So in other words, Google can make Google can make a pretty good argument right now, and they do, that when they link to something that's online, that's information, it's almost like a compliment. We've decided that you're a good source of information. Of course, we want to link to that. And when people click on it, they go to your website. So what's the problem? The thing with AI is that it's going to do the same scraping, but it's going to collect that data. It's going to, contort it with other data, and then it's going to regurgitate something out that will appear to be a unique, wholly created thing, when in fact, a lot of it might have been based on content that someone else created.
And this is the whole issue of copyright and AI. That's also what humans do. It's transformative, and I think most of there's no such thing as new music, but you take things that have come before. And as long as it's transformative, as long as it's not a copy of it.
Well, Ed Sheeran appreciates your argument there, Leo, but I got to say, Ed Sheeran is not making billions and billions of dollars. He did win, that's true, off of advertising, which is gross, But
But
at least he's making a creative.
And this is, I mean, there are a number of copyright AI cases.
Yeah.
In progress right now, but most people, most attorneys agree that I've talked to, it's going to be a hard thing to prove because it's transformative. It's what humans do. They read stuff, they look at art, and then they create their own.
Yeah, I mean,
I wonder if 2023 is going to be the year of the scrape between different, Reddit and Twitter charging for APIs. Like everybody's scraping on.
And no, we're not using that as the title for the show. I just want to stop that right now.
Oh no, I'm writing it down.
The year of the scrape is great. It should be shudder-inducing. Let's call it pap schmear.
But you're right. That's why we were talking earlier, Richard, before you arrived, about the shenanigans going on at Twitter over the weekend. And that's, I don't know if I believe him, but that's Elon's excuse for those rate limits on Twitter is because people have been scraping
Did he use the word
Twitter.
Shenanigans?
I use the word shenanigans.
Oh, I see. That would have been funny if he actually described himself that way.
No.
It always starts with jacking up the rates on the API or limiting access to the API. And it's like, well, if you're going to limit our access, then there's other ways for us to collect your data.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And don't threaten us because we'll use them.
I guess Google, I know Google searches Mastodon. I presume it searches Twitter, right? You could do a Google search and you'll see. I wonder how this is very
clear if it is on a public-facing website.
Right.
It is fair game for Google's
But that's
AI
kind of what Elon's
training.
done, is made this less of a public-facing website, right? That's an interesting question.
That's true. Although he started scaling that, but I don't know if you followed today's news, but
oh no, I haven't seen the latest.
That's been scaled back a little bit.
Yeah, because it broke Twitter.
Yeah. So they had removed the ability for a non-account holder to view tweets.
Right.
It's just crazy. I'm sure everyone, my website, we had a Twitter feed on the side, and we had to get rid of it because no data was coming through.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what Google does. Google doesn't log into Twitter before it spiders it, but it's not going to be able to.
Oh, they're smart. They probably log in as Elon Musk. And then
Wow.
I don't know.
Because he uses the same password everywhere.
Exactly. It's amazing. That's the same password I have in my luggage.
0000.
You told me my butt looks so big. Anyway,
I thought there was supposed to be a new CEO to Twitter, and he was going to build rockets.
Is really just running ad sales, Linda Yaccarino.
Right.
Elon is clearly in charge of everything else, and probably that too. You wouldn't ever want to work immediately.
Go work on your rocket.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to be Elon's boss at anything because he would just go,
Elon's boss. He's unmanageable.
Yeah, precisely.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's just Twitter's just and Elon are the gift that keeps on giving. But I think people are done with it, so we'll stop.
Yeah.
We'll stop talking. Google's privacy policy, I guess we'll talk about on This Week in Google. Okay, fine. It does seem like kind of...
I'm sure you'll have to.
Yeah, we will. We'll debate it.
You have to.
You got any hardware news?
Well, again, it's not so much news, although I had that Pixel Fold. I have to say...
So you had to return it by today if you didn't want it.
Yeah, because I'm flying tomorrow, exactly.
Did you?
Unfortunately. I did. So here are the reasons. When I went to buy this at the time, you got to remember they had incredible trade-in deals. I could have knocked almost $1,000 off this thing by trading in my phone and my wife's phone. They also were throwing a Pixel watch at you, which is worth $350 ostensibly, but rather have $350 off, but whatever. I didn't do that because my expectation was that I wasn't going to be keeping this thing, and why lose, God knows what gray area that we're in now when my phone's gone and they're evaluating it. And I did, so I thought if I somehow fell in love with this thing, I would just send this thing back like I planned. I'd just buy it again, and then I fell in love with this thing and I thought, God damn it. So the problem is those incredible trade-in offers are gone now. So my wife wants one too. But they're expensive. So I think we'll see how the sales go. Maybe
so you do want it.
That.
You just don't want to pay the price.
I don't want to pay full price. Yeah. I don't want to pay full boat. I also think
Samsung gets me every time.
Right. It's incredible.
It's the trade-ins.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Google does the same thing, but one of the big differences with Pixel, at least over the past 2 years, the Pixel 6 and 7 series, is that they are undercutting their direct flagship competitors by hundreds of dollars, right? They also have regular sales where hundreds of dollars more comes off the price. At some point, buying a Pixel 7 is like getting a prize in a box of cereal. Like anyone could get one of these things. And they didn't do this with the Pixel Fold, which kind of blows my mind. If you look at the two major configurations, they are identical in price to what Samsung is charging for their Z Fold, right? That is not going to work because I don't think Google or Pixel at least has the name out in the world. I don't think they're a trusted brand. I think Samsung kind of is, and plus, let's face it, Google's had a lot of product quality with hardware.
And they're kind of getting a bad reputation for support. I see.
Yeah, although they do pledge 6 years of security updates.
No, I mean, like if the phone screen breaks.
Oh yeah, no, you're on your own.
Yeah.
No, the asterisk to that is they are putting the Pixel Fold into that kind of self-repair program. You can go to, I don't know if it's what's that major fix-it company? I think you'd be able to get a service there. And
I break, you fix. I fix, you break.
I think so. But they're actually including the internal screen in that. Like you could, as an individual, I don't know who would want to do this. It'd be like doing surgery, but you could apparently someday soon you'll be able to replace that yourself.
That's good because if you get a crease in it or.
Yep.
But I got to tell you, the issue, right, is this screen creasing.
Right.
That and also there's
lots of software only appearing in the middle, right across the crease.
There's also and Ron Amadio was talking about this at Ars Technica, and this is true on the Fold too. Because the OLED screen is right there, they put a plastic covering over it.
That's right. There's no Gorilla Glass because Gorilla Glass doesn't bend.
Yeah.
So
you can fold Gorilla Glass once.
Yeah.
I'm sure Corning's working as fast as they can with unfoldable glass, and I bet you there's something. But
I bet if Steve Jobs wanted it, they'd do it. But anyway, so
bitter much?
No, I got to say, 10 years ago, and this was 2013, so 3 years after the iPad came out. You got to remember back then the iPad was just a tablet. People watched movies on it, they read books and stuff. But there was already this growing collection of people who wanted to make it into a laptop. And so you'd have these idiots that would show up at like a internet cafe or whatever, and they would pull out the tablet stand and the Bluetooth keyboard, the Bluetooth mouse, and then they were trying to make it like a laptop, And I infamously
you're
had
describing Mike Elgin here, so be careful. Okay?
Yeah, just nerdy, And I just my whole thing was like, look, and I still feel this way by and large. I mean, all these years later, for the most part, my experience has been over the years. Like in my case, like when I travel, I will bring a laptop, and that's great for work, and I bring a tablet because I want to read. I read every day, and I like the bigger screen. I'm middle-aged. And sometimes when I travel, I'll actually watch a movie. I'll download a couple of movies, whatever. And then, of course, you use your phone for like everything, right? So your phone is your phone. And there's some really advantages of this, including that every one of these things has its own battery. So when I open my laptop, I don't waste time on it like playing a game or reading a book or something because I'm using battery that should be used for productivity tasks, right? And I called this the right tool for the job at the time, right? And I've kind of adhered to this principle ever since. And I've been looking for that one product that was going to do the work of two things adequately without enough compromises that it still made sense. And I think that these folding phones, and I would say especially the Pixel Fold for me, because I like the aspect ratio stuff compared to the really tall and thin Samsung screens, is the first I've seen in 10 years where I'm like, yeah, this can replace two of the devices I use every day. And that's really interesting to me. That said, you buy a brand new Pixel Pro and a brand new Pixel tablet and save $500, right? It's, because Pixel Fold is very expensive, and that's where this kind of falls apart for me.
Yeah.
And
but it's interesting. You liked the form factor. You liked the device.
Yep.
You and Stephanie both want one. Wow, that's really interesting.
It's incredible, and that was not expected. I just I have look, I can fall for marketing as hard as anybody. Every time Apple holds an event, I'm like, maybe, but you kind of scale back from the cliff or whatever. And and look, when I review products, I usually take many weeks or even months, and I really go in depth, and I didn't have that time for this. I felt kind of weird about that, but I did what everyone else does, which is you spend a week with it and then you cough out, whatever. And I just wanted to be really clear about that because I just didn't have a choice. It just timing wise, it was bad for me. But I didn't expect to like this one so much.
Yeah. Now, Samsung's going to have an event this month. We don't know when yet.
That's right. In August. Yeah, I think, right?
Or is it August? Yeah, maybe it's August. Anyway,
I think it's usually August. Maybe it is going to be this month.
I think they said it was going to be July this year. Anyway.
Yeah, you might be right.
They haven't announced a date. And the presumption is they'll announce a new Galaxy Fold and a new Flip. Would you look at those, or do you want to?
I would, but I would, and like you noted, like they do a great, like day one. My God, you can get incredible money on a trade-in from Samsung, right? They do that stuff is amazing. I don't like Samsung, frankly. I'd like the whole clean Android image thing. I like all the Pixel
hardware
perk stuff.
Though, I got to tell you.
No, I know. I would love a Samsung device, but with Google software and services on it. I don't like the Samsung kind of superfluous nonsense, but.
The EU is going to make it possible for you to remove all that Samsung superfluity.
That's true.
Good news.
I don't live in Europe yet, but you never know.
Yet?
No, all of the rumors I've seen, and there's some really recent ones too, suggest that from a form factor perspective, they're not changing too much. There's a small. I don't know if this is a small or a big thing, but the Pixel Fold closes flat. Existing
Samsung
Z Flips
looks like
not.
No.
Like a Surface book, with a hole in the middle. And by the way, that's particularly damaging when the most sensitive part in the entire system, which is that where the hinge and that folding display intersect, is the part that's exposed to the air even when it's closed.
Yep.
Is a little concerning. On the flip side, I would say Samsung has been doing this. They're on the 4th generation now, so soon to be 5th. So obviously,
and they keep improving the hinge and its seal.
That's right.
But I just feel like my Captain Crunch is going to get right in there, and it's going to be
exactly.
All over,
Exactly. That's what. Yeah, you don't want to go down.
Nope.
Like Ron did at Ars Tech. So
exactly.
I don't. Although, by the way, it's interesting. He's the only major example of that.
I know. I think Ron either he had a defective phone, in which case.
So was it the Note 20 that? What was the version of the Note that was exploding and catching on fire?
7.
What was that?
6, 7, something like
7.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So whatever that was, if you were to go back in time and would look at that product's release 1 week later, everyone reviewed it as the greatest smartphone ever released.
I loved it.
Because when you only have 1 week with something, you have no idea what's wrong with it, unless it's like a glaringly obviously problem. Like you actually have to use things over time to understand where some of the flaws are. And unfortunately, in the case of whatever the that circuitry in there that was causing the fire.
Kind of had a significant flaw.
Catching fire takes time. You can't rush catching fire.
Can't rush it.
Yeah. I get my point though is that maybe there's something like that with the Pixel Fold. It's this. I can't possibly predict how well this screen will hold up.
Well, that's why I figure Samsung. What is this? Their 5th Fold.
Yeah, I know. I
think they've
really
got
like
some
the shape.
Experience under the belt. I know. I prefer the form factor.
I really
aspect
do.
ratio.
My prediction is, I don't know next year or whenever this is, but that we will see a Pixel Fold Pro that will be a larger phone, but with the same aspect ratio. And that is very interesting to me because the outside screen is 5.8 inches, a little small for me. 6.1 inches, by the way, is the standard kind of iPhone Pro non-mega version, whatever.
Right.
The Pixel 7 is probably 6.3 inches. Pixel, the Pro is probably 6.7, whatever that is. It's bigger. So
it's also just weird. These extra tall screens are so weird looking. I don't like that. Creepy. That's
my big thing. Because honestly, like as exciting as the folding stuff is, the reality is most of your interactions on a phone are these kind of glanceable quick things. Mm-hmm. Your phone buzzes, you look at it, maybe you do a little quick response to a text message or whatever it is, but you don't open it. And that's where I think the Samsung Fold falls apart. For me, I just don't like that tall, skinny form factor.
If I weren't all in on the Apple ecosystem, if I weren't a sheeple, I would probably get the Flip, the new Flip, because that's going to have a bigger screen. I think that's a great size.
I would just say, so I wrote this article about hybrid stuff, and I went back about, if you think about like a laptop when it came out, it's kind of a hybrid device. So in a way, it's like you don't have to go to a room to use a computer. You can bring it with you. It's kind of a cool idea. The Flip is an excellent phone, and I very much see the use case for it. But it's not really a hybrid device, right? Because in the end, it's always a phone. You have this little thing, and you open it, and it's still a phone. You know what I mean? Like it's not replacing a tablet. It's just replacing your phone. So it's very much an interesting form factor, but it doesn't, to my mind, kind of fall into the category of hybrid. It's just it's not even a new form factor. It's a form factor from the 90s.
It's the old form factor. It's like
applied
a Nokia
to smartphones. Yeah.
It's like the StarTAC.
It looks like a nice device. But I want the little tablet thing.
You want a little tablet in your pocket. And you didn't feel like it was too big to carry around? Too thick? No.
Nope.
Okay.
No, I mean, if you're wearing skinny jeans, you have other problems I can't help you with. But I think this thing is for any man, certainly. And I think even for a woman, if you have like a small, people sometimes carry, like my wife has a little, she has a purse, but she also has like a smaller thing.
Yeah.
It would fit fine in that. Yeah. Fine.
All right. The pizza's here. So I'm going to let you take over and do the Xbox segment.
Okay.
And then Richard, if you have anything to say, just say it. Paul is.
Yes. By the way, just Richard, as a general rule, you should always do
if
that.
you have anything to say it. Yeah.
Normally I'm very shy, right?
Yes. Yeah. Self-effacing. Yes. Video game exclusives. This was the last day of testimony on last week's trial.
And they carted out the big guns. And among them, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. And I almost said something like, I like Satya Nadella. And I'm like, I'm not even sure I could say that. I mean, he's, whatever, he's fine. But he claimed that he wants video game exclusives to go away, especially in the Xbox. And yeah, sure. No, that's why you've spent tens of billions of dollars buying game studios and want to spend $90 billion or whatever it is buying Activision Blizzard. I understand you exist in this market that, that is there and it's Sony's fault or Nintendo's fault or Atari's fault or however you want to blame it. But you can't claim that you want this to happen when you're actively working to make sure that you're now a big player in this space.
But I think it's because they want to do the Game Pass model, and you'll buy Xbox for Game Pass rather than pay per
so
to Sony.
This is that kind of definition of market issue. Like, when you're antitrust, when you're looking at antitrust and you want to prove that someone is dominant, you can narrowly define a market however you want to make them look dominant, right? Like the Apple is the dominant player in Mac-based operating systems. It's like, duh. So in Microsoft's case, we used to have this notion of Xbox games or Xbox platform exclusives, and what that meant was those games would only run on an Xbox, but a console. And as Microsoft expanded Xbox to include Game Pass and other subscription services and whatever else, it's kind of hard to define these things because in many cases they can also run on PCs. We have these cross-platform games that are kind of common now. And then because of game streaming, they're still exclusives, but you can access them on more devices, right? They're still exclusives to the Xbox ecosystem with asterisks, right? Because in some cases, these games, because of all these deals Microsoft has been doing lately, will be available from competing services too. And the problem with this is it's not pervasive. It's still very much a weird subset. So if you're like an NVIDIA GeForce Now customer and that's what you like, and there's some part of the Microsoft Xbox exclusive game thing that will run on your service, the thing that you're subscribing to, but it's not the whole Xbox thing, right? It's not, you know what I mean? There's still the superset, the big circle in this bubble field is Xbox, and some of the games will leach over into other things, but it's what I mean. So it's still exclusivity. It still benefits Microsoft every time.
It definitely benefits Microsoft, but I mean, it makes sense to me. They've been burned by exclusives, so they have a lot of case for saying we want to resist exclusives. But also the fact is they have more financial models than Sony does here, and so they have ways to make money that even when it is exclusive, they would likely win.
Right. Yeah, I am very naive when it comes to this stuff. Like I would like to live in a world where Microsoft puts its exclusives on Sony and Sony puts its exclusives on the Xbox, literally on the console. I know Xbox. I will say Sony does something, and then someone pointed this out to me. I'd kind of forgotten about this, and I guess I can say I didn't completely understand the strategy, but Sony, like Microsoft, is bringing console games to PCs. And the way that in Sony's case, they are bringing their exclusive to the PCs. That doesn't mean that they look at whatever they have here in 2023 and they port that. What they've been doing is going to the back catalog and starting from the back and coming forward. So, it starts off with older games. They get a little newer as we go forward in time, but it's not one of those day and date things. That's one of the things that Microsoft does do a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times. So there, if you want to join, I think it's PlayStation Now, I think is the service, if I'm not mistaken. You can stream to games that you bought in the cloud. You can stream them to your PC, and if you can buy some PC, like native PC games that are made by Sony, Gods of War and so forth. And I don't know. I just want everything to work everywhere. I want to be able to choose, like I want to use a Nintendo Switch, or I want to use a phone, or I want whatever it is. I don't know why Nintendo doesn't bring all their classic NES games to, iPhone and iPad.
So you want Xbox streaming on a PlayStation? Is that where you want to go?
I would like Xbox games downloadable and installable on a PlayStation. Absolutely streaming as well, for sure. It's one of those can't we all get along moments, I feel like this is a big enough market that
you're not being a good capitalist, Paul, honestly.
Well, but hold on a second. So think about it from Sony's perspective. Well, Sony would no, right? Sony would never want this. But you know what? Sony has this big lead that they have, and the reason they have this big lead is that they have more and better exclusives. So in a world in which both companies were putting their stuff elsewhere, Sony would benefit from the increased market penetration of having additional machines that would buy the software. And I'm sure there are Xbox owners who would be happy to buy some of those big Sony games, just like I'm sure there are some PlayStation owners who would be happy to buy some of the, Halo or whatever it is, some big Microsoft/Xbox games on the console they chose. I want it to be more like the PC space, I guess. Like you can have a pretty low-end PC these days and still play some decent games. Of course, you can stream anything. But you can also choose, like, I'm going to spend more and get the better PC in this case. But
talk to a Mac owner about that.
I think it's going to be there too. I think that's coming, right? We saw the WWDC stuff, and there was actually some news about that today about this ability to port Windows-based games to the Mac more easily now because of what's going on with Apple Silicon. I think that's going to happen.
We're going to solve this with brute force and hardware emulation.
Yeah, I think we are. I really do. But whatever. I know it's naive and it's simplistic, but I hate. I guess that's what Satya Nadella was really saying. I hate that this world exists. I wish it was better. I wish it was different. I don't think it's going to be.
And your comments at the top of this about Nadella were interesting to me because in some ways Nadella is very much a generic CEO. Yeah. Like the previous CEOs were such characters. We sort of expect in tech character CEOs. But when's the last time you saw him have any kind of gaffe other than the first year that he was CEO?
That's a good point.
And I mean, I get to bump into him every so often. He's never off script, ever.
Yeah, that takes a certain kind of person. That's very unusual. But you know what? It's more mature. I mean, I think the Bill Gates, Steve Ballmer stuff. These guys were rougher, around the edges, and
they had the self-made element to it.
Well, when you're going to war,
role.
You want that guy. We're trying to carve out new markets and blah blah blah. You want that kind of MacArthur type. But once you're this big established, ostensibly slow-moving company, and it's not exciting and fast-moving anymore. It's cloud. Maybe you want. Not maybe. I think you do want a guy like Satya Nadella. This kind of. I don't mean to say plotting. Like a methodical, logical engineer type.
I think it's also possible the public version that we see is not what he is privately, right?
I would give anything to think that this guy was
very much on script
in private.
Yeah. He is.
I refuse to believe that he ever actually laughs.
Any good CEO, he's extremely cautious in his public pronouncements. He's not a Steve Ballmer.
I really like about Phil Spencer, who's the guy that runs Xbox, is that first of all, a guy walks in a torn t-shirt and jeans, right? Doesn't care. He's plain spoken. He is very upfront about the mistakes that he's made, that they made as a business, whatever. He doesn't think about answers. And I always, this is my favorite example from a million years ago, but there was a program in Microsoft called XP Reloaded. Remember, Longhorn was taking forever and they were trying to renew excitement in Windows XP. They had done Service Pack 2, but then they started doing over the media programs. They're trying to just make it more exciting. It's the same thing, but let's make it more exciting. We want to market this, right? And so we were at some, but they refused to admit publicly that that's what this was. So we were at the launch event that again, they were not calling it XP related. So I was talking to a PR guy and I said, hey, come on, admit it. I mean, this is what this collection of things you're releasing is XP reloaded, right? And he said, well, Paul, Microsoft is always reevaluating how we ship solutions to our customers. And right then, Greg Sullivan walked by and I was like, shut up for a second. I said, Greg, so this is XP reloaded, right? He goes, yep. And then he hoists his glass of wine and he walked by.
Oh my God.
I said, that's how you answer a question.
But see, your agenda as the press and our agenda as users is different from the company's agenda, especially as a publicly traded company. Their whole audience is not us. It's the stock market.
I feel very strongly about transparency in every aspect of every part of this business. And Leo, because I complain about this endlessly every quarter, when you look at the nonsense they talk about, Windows Azure was up 16% year over year. Oh, what was the last year? Oh, we don't know. They don't give you any hard data. But then we have like this trial, and all of a sudden we've got 1,800 pages of documents with very hard data. Microsoft revealed when the next PlayStation was coming out, and it's in documentation and how much it's going to cost. These
this
answers.
Is why these companies hate these trials and discovery. Apple Apple won in every regard, and it was still a horrible loss for Apple because we heard the stuff that they're saying privately.
Okay. Look, again, I'm naive and I'm simplistic. These are publicly held companies. They have shareholders. We have a right to this information. That's how we make decisions about where we're going to invest. I think it is, but I don't even understand how it's legal to be this vague. I feel like we stepped into it over the past 10 years. Every quarter, each one of these companies was like, how little can we say? And then after a few years, they're like, holy crap, we don't have to say anything.
No, that's right.
I just think people stopped asking.
That's because the SEC does not enforce
it's nuts.
The rules, or Congress doesn't make the rules requiring what is clearly in the public interest.
I think in every step of the way. You can't blame a
company. It's the same thing with the tax law. You can't blame a company for taking every advantage they can take.
That's like saying, if I could kill this guy and get away with it, I would.
Pretty much, yeah.
I don't know.
If it were legal to kill people who are left-handers, there would be no more lefties.
Jeez.
But fortunately, it's not.
Sadly true.
So we need to go to Congress and we need to go to the SEC and we need to vote and say, enforce the GD rules.
So my wife is left-handed, so this is a constant source.
As am I. That's why I bring it up.
So one of my best jokes about this was I said to her one time, I said, you should try to get a handicap plate. And she's like, why? And I'm like, well, you're left-handed. You don't even, you just.
If I could get a handicap plate for that, I would.
Yeah, right. Anyhow, I just wish, I'm just from my little role in the side corner here, I look at these companies and I think, I really like when they're transparent and I can't stand when they're not. And I kind of have a hard time understanding how it hurts them not to be transparent. I think unless of course they're just a scam or they're in a, fail until you win kind of a situation.
Elizabeth Holmes comes to mind.
Oh, by the way, that's what Microsoft was with the cloud for a while. That's what Microsoft is now with AI.
I completely,
right?
If you think about it, Elizabeth Holmes was taking the lessons learned.
Yes, from the tech industry.
And applying it.
The thing is,
fake it till you make it.
The problem is when Windows puts up an ad that I don't like, I don't get cancer or whatever.
Well,
it doesn't. This is a different
The biggest
area.
problem, in my opinion, it was A, she was a woman, and B, she ripped off George Shultz. And you don't rip off George Shultz in this country.
Not to mention, she imitated Steve Jobs. She faked this voice. I don't care that she was a woman. I think, if anything, we need more women leaders.
No, you and I agree.
Across the board.
You and I agree. But I think that there was this subtle...
you can fake it till you make it, but in the end, you have to tell your insider investors your product doesn't work. Once you're actively lying to the people who are financing you, you're in trouble.
And if it's a health consequence,
exactly. It's a health product, right? This is, if Windows Copilot is lame and you promise us all these great features, I mean, okay, big deal. But when you're not telling people that they have some medical issue because your blood test doesn't actually work, that is not just ethically wrong. I mean, it's illegal. It's just not. It's not right. It's just not. It's dangerous. You don't hurt people.
Yeah.
So yeah, she should be in jail for the rest of her life. But whatever. Anyway,
speaking about hurting people, talk about mobile development, because that can hurt people.
It's hurt Microsoft. I can tell you that. In fact,
well, that's because they haven't gotten into mobile development.
Yeah, well, not for games. Yeah, you're right. And the iPhone was obviously like this asteroid heading toward their Earth that destroyed everything. Microsoft learned all the wrong lessons from Apple. Unfortunately, they spent so much time trying to copy them in tablets and phones, and turning PCs into tablets. I think they lost sight of where the strengths are. But the Xbox thing, I have to say, I love Phil Spencer. Like I said earlier, I think this business is in a good space in some ways. But the one major misstep, if I had to point to one, and it's really easy to do that, is the mobile thing, right? Microsoft buys Activision Blizzard. They
could have built a mobile team.
Yep.
The problem is that there's no money in mobile games unless you're willing to deceive or to torment your customers. And I don't know that a big corp can do that.
Then you don't use Windows 11. So well, of course, they're not offering you a way out of it. Yes, I know what you mean. There are different business models in gaming. Obviously, I think this. I don't like the whole loot box thing. I think we talked about this last week, but I think I mentioned this notion of shareware and how I think there are ways around this that don't make it horrible. But I also think look at something like Apple Arcade. I doubt anyone here subscribes to this, but a version of Apple Arcade that was more adult and maybe not restricted to the iPhone, I think would be of interest to a lot of people. I would game on mobile if it made sense. I looked at Call of Duty Mobile is a surprisingly good port or version or whatever you want to call it of Call of Duty. And mobile devices have incredibly high resolution screens. They've got great hardware accelerated graphics. I would want to use it with a controller, not touch, because I'm not 10, but those are all options you can do. I mean, this is, I think that part of it, I think what prevents Microsoft from going all in is that there are gatekeepers in the mobile space that prevent them from having an app store. I mean, Apple and Google Apple won't even let them have Xbox Cloud Gaming, which is a streaming service. They want to. It's like they don't understand what they're talking about. It's like we want to be paid for every game that someone plays. It's like no one's buying the games. They're just these are streaming. It's like it is literally the same thing as when you watch a video on Netflix. It's
just Netflix with buttons.
Yeah, you have to. The people at Apple who will complain like why this makes sense, they know it's not right. They do. That's the big problem with that kind of thing. So I don't know that excuses it, but I feel like Microsoft could live in this world that does exist already, and then hope for this future, which maybe they'll get from the EU, where they can do the store thing. But they have some really good IP. I don't understand why this stuff isn't running on mobile. Listen, one of the big arguments that the FTC has made about Microsoft and Activision Blizzard is this notion that, well, yeah, you say you're going to port Call of Duty to Nintendo Switch, but Nintendo Switch is like a really low-end device compared to most of the things that play Call of Duty. So this game's going to be hugely compromised. It's not going to look good. It's not going to sound good, whatever it is. And okay, we can have that discussion, but that's not true of mobile. You could port Call of Duty to mobile. They have, but it would look great. It would sound great. It would play great. It's there, and so Microsoft could have done that with Halo, with Gears of War, with Flight Simulator, probably with whatever else they have. Sea of Thieves. They could have done native games on mobile. They just didn't. And I know they looked into buying some. That's why I wanted to talk about.
Why do you think they didn't? Why?
Can't explain it. I don't know.
Yeah, if you're going to go with the gatekeeping scenario, then the obvious one is I need to buy a product that's already in the store. So no, I force Apple or Google to take it out of the store because I own it.
Right. I wonder, one of the things that came up, I will say one of the things that guy from Sony, I can't remember his name, the CEO of Sony America, whatever, had kind of said, he was talking about the past and how in the Xbox 360 timeframe, this is absolutely true, Xbox started to become known as the console for like third-party shooters. I think that was one of the reasons they bought Activision, or they did their licensing rather with exclusive licensing for Call of Duty. They wanted to get the biggest chunk or a big chunk of those kind of first-person shooter guys over in Sony, and I think they've kind of maintained that impression or whatever. That a lot of the people who do play shooters on console use Xbox. Like it's kind of gone that way. And I think those type of games, I don't know. I think they just view the world through that lens. Maybe it's one of those, you're a hammer, everything's a nail. I don't know. I think they got stuck in their little rut.
There's also stuff goes on inside Microsoft. And I know this is both of your mission to ferret it out, but there's always stuff that goes. We had a guy come by last week to say hi. Started at Microsoft out of college, rose up to be a PM. I won't say his name. At one point, he was on the Windows Phone team, and he said he told me something. I was shocked. He said we had Windows Phone ready for Samsung. They were going to use it instead of Android.
Wow. Well, Samsung. Okay, so actually, Samsung was the biggest maker of Windows phones in the first, I call it 2 generations. The 7 and 7 point whatever. When that thing launched, there was like one HTC device. I don't remember the other one, but there were 3 Samsungs.
He gave me the impression Samsung was prepared to do that instead of Android.
Okay.
And it for political reasons, it was killed at Microsoft. And
I don't even know if it's political reasons so much. If it was just they never built a working ecosystem, why would you do that? You need the ecosystem.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. You get on Samsung's phones.
They built several ecosystems. They just kept tearing them down.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a Focus S, a Focus 2. They had a bunch of stuff. I mean,
man, I wish you had been here to talk to him because he seemed like he had some very good information. He retired, as one does if you start at Microsoft in college and work there 25 years.
Sure.
And so he's a young guy, happy, spending his Microsoft money. But he had some stories to tell, and I just didn't have the knowledge you guys had. I wish I had to ask him the right questions.
If Microsoft is not allowed to acquire Activision Blizzard, if this deal does fall apart, I think the single biggest thing they have to figure out is some mobile strategy, which could involve, buying smaller companies, right?
Yeah, go get a Zynga or, one of those guys.
So they gotta figure this out because they're not just a small part of the overall gaming pie. They're a really small and unprofitable part of it. They don't earn a profit on the hardware. Consoles are the smallest part of the gaming market. The big parts of it, right? I mean, cloud gaming is obviously the smallest, but both Sony and Microsoft, like I said, had done something to get going on PC, and I think both of them have done a decent job. Microsoft, I think, has done a better job, but they've not really either of them done anything to figure out mobile. And this is a big glaring hole. It's a problem. So I don't know. Maybe the EU will make Apple open up their devices, and you can have third-party app stores, and Microsoft can make this happen.
There you go. That's what they want.
Maybe we'll see. Okay, and then just to wrap this up, it's July. I'm sure you all know that, and that means we have new games available or coming to Xbox Games with Gold and Game Pass. And as has been the case so often, I will say the 2 games that are arriving this month. The first one's available now, Darkwood, and the other game, which is called what? When the Past Was Around. I have no idea what these games are. Darkwood is a survival horror game.
It's like one's for guys and one's for gals. It looks like.
Yeah, it totally looks like that. Yeah, exactly. It's like you're a teenager. You're a boy or a girl. Oh, you're getting Darkwood. You're a boy. Yeah. And then Game Pass, this one arrived a little late. Interestingly, Grand Theft Auto 5, which used to be available on Game Pass, has come back to Game Pass. I think is there a new GTA game coming out soon or something? I think there might be. Anyway, it's available on cloud and console. That's available now. And then again, it's like, yikes, what are these games? Like, what is this? One of them is literally called McPixel 3. I hope it's not a sandwich at McDonald's. I don't know what we're talking about here.
Pixel 3. Well, it's about time they put that on Game Pass because I
I should know. I should have said, by the way, the GTA 5 is a remastered version. It supports 60 frames per second on Series X. Yep, and there's a ray tracing mode too.
It's kind of fun to play these old games for out of nostalgia. I
do this again and again.
Yeah.
And again. I play so many old games. Yeah. Well, that's what we're going to talk about. We're gonna go as old as you can go. Actually, in a few minutes. Yeah, I like that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it was a good game in the 90s, it's probably a good game now.
Well, it's also you're part of your youth, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's part of your memory. It's a little. I think I've talked about this in the past.
You did when you go and you're in a map. You call.
Yeah, I know exactly. Yep.
Yeah, we're back.
Yeah,
we're home, baby.
Yep, here I am. Yeah,
Daddy's
it's like
here.
Going back to a town you used to live in. You're like, I know exactly the shortcut to the woods. Yeah.
I know the hole to the golf course.
Yes, I know. Where are all the teenagers? What are you guys doing? I'm gonna have a little community meeting.
Hey, we're going to go to the back of the book in a moment. Richard, since you're here, do you want to, tell us which brown liquor you'll be drinking in the river in Montana, or?
All prepared and added to the notes very quickly.
Yeah, you got time.
Nice.
I'm going to do a little plug right now for our club, and then we'll get to the back of the book. If you're not yet a member of Club Twit, and if you're hearing this, you're not, because one of the beauty parts of being a member of Club Twit is no ads. Not even my importuning you to join Club Twit. That's the good part, No ads, all of our shows, but actually that was kind of the initial premise 2 years ago when we launched the club. $7 a month, you're paying us. We don't need to give you ads. No ads, no tracking, none of that. Then we added the Discord, which is a wonderful community in its own right. Lots of fun, great people in there, not just talking about the shows, talking about everything geeks are interested in, from comic books to booze to gaming. And then we added shows that are Club Twit exclusives. Paul's show, Hands on Windows, it's in the club. Hands on Macintosh with Micah Sargent. Our new AI show, which Jason Howell and Jeff Jarvis are working on, coming soon in the club. Because the club lets us launch shows. They have a financial footing. Otherwise, without the club, you're taking a big gamble on shows. We've lost lots of money on shows that didn't take off. This way, the club finances it. And sometimes, like This Week in Space, the show's a success. We put it out in public. Sometimes we just keep it for ourselves, like the Hands on Linux show, the Giz Fizz with Dick D. Bartolo, Stacy's Book Club. We had a couple of great events last week because Aunt Pruitt, our community manager, puts together some real good stuff in the club, including an interview with Hugh Howey, who wrote the Wool sci-fi series, which is what Silo was based on Apple TV+. Stacy had her book club last week as well. We've got great events coming up. You get ad-free shows we don't put out anywhere else. Hands on Mac, Hands on Windows. Oh, Scott Wilkinson's Home Theater Geeks. You get the Discord, $7 a month. I think it's an amazing deal. And here's the best thing: you can feel good in your heart because you're helping us keep the lights on. Times are getting tougher and tougher for podcasts. A lot of podcast businesses, including Spotify's, going under. We want to stick around. We really do. And with the club, we can. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit. Sign up today. There's a family plan. There's a year plan. There's a business plan. I think it's very affordable, and you are helping us keep the lights on, keep the staff employed, and launch new shows. Lots of new shows. Twit.tv/clubtwit. All right. I'm done importuning you. Now we may continue. Time for tips and picks. We'll start with Paul Thurrott's tip of the week, numero uno.
Yeah. So we talked about Windows Copilot earlier. If you install, most people who install this dev channel build will not get this feature. Fortunately, there is a way to do so. So like I said, 3 steps. I didn't say this. I said, well, the first step, get the dev channel build. You never know. Maybe you'll get it. I don't think you will, but it could happen. So look, right? The way you can tell is there's a new icon in the default set of icons in the taskbar that looks a lot like a blue version of the Microsoft 365 app icon. It's very, very similar. But if you don't see that, you need to install something called Vive Tool. And then you need to use a very specific command line with a administrative administrative run it as an administrator. I can't say it out loud. It's in my article about hands-on with Windows Copilot. I will put it in the show notes. It is in the show notes for the show if you are in Discord right now. I don't know what you guys do with posting it on your site, but it will be in my version of the show notes when I post it tomorrow. So there's that. You can get it. Prepare to be underwhelmed, but there you go. I didn't think Richard was going to be here, so I have 2 tips and 2 epics, so I'll try to be quick here. Tony Redmond reached out to me. He and others write an amazing book about Microsoft 365 / Office 365 called Office 365 for IT Pros. They just released the 2024 edition. This thing is over 1,300 pages long, by the way. Windows Weekly viewers and listeners can get $10 off using a special URL, which is also in the show notes. So it's normally $49.95. You can get it for $39.95. And I'll read this, but you're better off finding it in the show notes. So it's o365itpros.gumroad.com/i/o365it/Windows Weekly 24.
So and they do monthly updates of that book.
That's right.
It's constant because 365 is always a moving target.
Yeah, it's right. You think Windows is a nightmare, as I do. Office / Microsoft 365, even worse. Also bigger.
And the whole governance discussion, it's a book for IT pros because we have to manage this bloody thing.
That's funny. You wouldn't think that the Office book would be bigger than the Windows book. But I guess.
Well, I mean, look, I'm not done with the Windows book. I mean, I'm closing on 900 pages, but it's.
You've mentioned this one before. I mean, this is the book, right?
Yeah, this is the definitive.
This is the elephant book.
Exactly. This is the elephant in the room.
Right. It's almost the end of road for this kind of concept of a book.
Wow.
They're continuous update, and they keep bringing new writers in because people burn out keeping this thing alive.
Yeah, look at all the people.
I've also, I don't want to go on too long on this, but I've talked to Tony a lot about business models and stuff. So, for example, I write my books. I put them on LeanPub. People can buy them. They always get updates. And he's, this is kind of a subscription deal, basically. So I believe that when you buy the 2024 edition, you get a year of monthly updates. And then
it's a good deal.
I think they might even
$40 for
there's even a straight up
1,300 pages by itself would be a good deal.
Yeah. It's hard.
But then they keep getting the updates because they sort out all the new features for you, and that's the biggest challenge. Is new stuff comes in and you don't know what to do. This book is evergreen if you support it.
Yeah, right. That's great.
Yeah,
but you think this might be the end of the line for this kind of volume?
No. I mean, I would say so.
No, I think they modernize it.
Oh, I misunderstood.
Yeah. And more to the point, the audience is always going to be there, right? So if you think about the books I write, the kind of books for consumers or individuals. I mean, 20 years ago, you can make a huge case. People need, they don't know how these things work. I mean, there's still stuff in Windows that I think is confusing, obviously, and I'm not trying to undercut my book here, but I mean, the people listening to this who watch Windows Weekly or whatever probably don't need the Windows 11 field guide. But if you're an IT pro, you probably do need the Office 365 for IT pros book. So it's just it's a different part of the market, and I don't see this part of it going away anytime soon.
Yeah.
Until AI just manages everything for us, which I'm sure is the next step.
On the other hand, you're not going to see a 1,300-page book on the shelves at your local Barnes and Noble either, right? Or can you even produce a book that thick?
So this is a problem I've run into with my books, which are less than 1,000 pages. It's impossible, basically, to print something like that. You could do a 2-volume thing or something.
Right. I think that's what happened. Our friend Glenn Fleischman, who produced a book about, you would love this, by the way, about typewriters called Shift Happens. And it got so big that they ended up splitting it into 2 volumes because they couldn't print it.
So that kind of book, you could make a case for it. But I think for these books, my books and Tony's, this is a product that gets updated all the time, like you said. And you don't want a paper version of it that's out of date 2 weeks later.
Yeah. Plus, where are you going to put it?
Right.
I mean, I don't have the Delphi 3 Bible pretty much took up all my shelf space. I don't have any more room for anything else.
That was some good reading too.
Oh, it was so good.
Good reading.
Such a good book.
So
by the way,
epics,
we talked about nostalgia, playing old video games.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever reread old computer books. Maybe it's just me.
Oh, I do, but I'm broken inside. We've already established that.
Really?
So most people don't. Yeah, I totally do.
But not like
I just
manuals.
All right, listen. Okay, I'm going to say this. This is stupid, but as part of my, I'm not going to call it research because it makes me sound great. But as part of my research into like this kind of video game computer nostalgia stuff, I have bought a crazy number of weird technical books, how to program an Atari 2600. I bought the VIC-20 Programmer's Reference Guide.
Okay.
I've watched documentaries and whatever. So yeah, I listen.
That's not nostalgia. That's research.
I'm in this camp. I realized I spent a lot of money buying an old copy of Inside Macintosh from 1984.
Yes, I own those. I owned them
back in the day.
After they were out of date. Yeah, I love those books, the hardcover originals.
Yeah.
And by the way, that source code, Pascal.
Yeah. Just like the Delphi 3 Super Bible.
Yep. Oh yeah. There's a straight line from one to the other. So I wrote an article recently about the Atari 2600 and the ways that you can emulate it on PCs, especially, but obviously there's hardware emulators. The Atari story is so interesting. I actually, because of the Bill Gates story, I mentioned the MOS Technology 6502 processor. This was one of the first devices to use it. And anything that was 8-bit, and with rare exception, I know in the UK there were some Z80 things, but the majority of 8-bit machines, whether they were games or computers, were 6502, and the Atari was one of them.
The Apple was 6502 as well.
Yep. Yeah, they were, I should say a variant of it. Like actually, the Atari was a 6507, but it's the same instruction set, whatever. So if you want to emulate Atari on your PC, very easy, very, very easy. What you're looking for is something called Stella. Stella is the code name for the original 2600. Stella was named after a bicycle, not a woman.
Oh.
But no one knew that, so every subsequent Atari code name was a woman's name, and whatever. So anyway, Stella is free, obviously. I'm not going to discuss how, Google is your friend, but all of the ROMs are out there. Obviously, they're tiny because, they're 2 to 8K games at the, most of them.
That's all they can put in a cartridge. Yeah.
I mean, an MP3, the size of an MP3 file could include an Atari 2600 in a full catalog of games. Like, it's stupid. And they play great, by the way. It's astonishing how good this can be.
What's your favorite game?
Crazy.
What's your favorite?
So the funny thing about Atari is I never owned an Atari. I knew everyone had an Atari. So
it was my first computer. Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite would have to be a cross between, Pitfall was one of the big ones for me.
Yeah.
And I would say, I like the classics, Missile Command, Asteroids. I like Pac-Man, even though it was nothing like the arcade. River Raid, which is an Activision game.
Yeah.
Demon Attack was fantastic. Frogger, obviously.
They don't, I have to say, this is one where this is going way back.
Yeah. This is a million years ago.
Yeah. I mean, it's soon going to be, 40 years old.
It is over 40 years old right now.
It's over 40. Yeah, it's almost going to be 50.
40, almost 45. It's 45. Yeah. Yep.
So these are very primitive games.
And you know what, though? They play really well. And there's a fascinating thing. There must be a term for this. It's well understood. When you have to work with incredibly constrained resources, you can be very creative over time and create a Choplifter is another
Chopper Command, which was
is amazing as well.
Yeah, the great game. Yeah,
another Activision game. These games are still fun to play. They just are. River
Elite.
Raid is a tremendous
Elite was the game that never stopped.
Which was it?
Elite. The generative space.
It's now Elite. Elite Dangerous, and they've.
I had Elite did a wireframe version on the Amiga, which basically sold the computer to me at the time, in the mid.
Yeah. I don't think there was an Elite. Was there an Elite for the Atari 2600? Wow. I missed out on that one. Yeah.
No, yeah.
We had Star Raiders.
Stay tuned. We're going to get to the 64.
Oh, okay.
There's no doubt about it. Also, just a fun fact about the Commodore 64. Everyone calls it the Commodore 64. It's actually the Commodore C64, and everyone assumes the C is for Commodore, and it's not.
Oh.
It's a generation of computers. The previous generation that no one has ever heard of were B256, B128, And then when they advanced it, and then this one went to consumers, they called it the C, and the next one was going to be the D, which, by the way, it was, because the original version of the 128 was the D128. Yep.
Well, you are full of nerdery.
I know. My brain is full of useless information, Leo.
You know.
Yep. No, I am. I know. I am my biggest
C does
nightmare.
not stand for Commodore, as
I don't
many
like people
think.
like me. You know.
Wow.
Yep. Huge problem.
Yep.
Okay.
Is that it? Wait a minute. You have another app picked. Do you want to do that or no?
Firefox.
Oh, I forgot all about it. Yeah. So also, just coincidentally, this week, Firefox released 115. Mozilla released Firefox 115. The only reason I really mention this one, although there's some new features in there, is that it is the last version that will support Windows 7 and Windows 8. And the interesting thing about that to me is that they actually have something called the extended support release version of Firefox, and that will continue to support Windows 7 and Windows 8. And basically what that does is just ensure you keep getting security updates. So good for them, right? For doing the right thing there. So that's kind of cool.
Well, I know Richard sounds like he fell down a well. He's not, actually. He's at the Denver airport.
Well, he technically did. He is in the Denver airport.
Yeah, so it's like falling down a well.
Yeah.
Was that an ET reference? Is that what you just did? Did you do an ET reference?
I don't know.
You did, because that was the biggest problem with ET.
He fell down a well? Oh.
Yeah, all the time.
Because he was so short. Yeah.
Yeah. No, because the game was so terrible.
And then he go, ouch. Oh, that the game. Oh.
Yeah.
The Atari.
That was everyone. If you touched one pixel to a well, you fell in it. Everyone hated it.
I have it here somewhere. I actually had 2 copies of it, and we had a guy on who was had worked on the development of it, and I said, "You probably don't have a copy, but I have one for you." But now
So there's a documentary
yes,
called Game Over, where they find all those cartridges in the desert worth watching. And the guy who programmed the game wrote a book called Once Upon Atari, which is also the name of another documentary about Atari. But anyway, he wrote the what's called Yard's Revenge and Raiders of the Lost Ark and E.T. So 2 for 3 is not too bad. Sorry, Richard. I didn't mean to go on.
And as long as we're talking emulators,
Not to worry.
And C64, I should show you this. Jerry Ellsworth did this. This is a C64 emulator that fits in a joystick.
In a joystick,
and then plugs into your TV.
Sure.
Has all the games. And as I remember, there's a Easter egg in this. You could drop down into the actual C64 interface and use it as a C64.
It's like program in BASIC. And stuff.
Because in order to do the emulator, they had to really make it a C64. So that is a C64 and a joystick right there.
We're totally going to get to this.
It's really quite a bad BASIC, though.
Yeah.
Yep.
Commodore BASIC.
And that's going to be a big part of that conversation, because there was a good version of the BASIC too. You had to buy a cartridge, and then they shipped it in the 128.
I should send you this. You'd probably get some value out of it. It's just collecting dust in my collection right now. I take you now to the Denver airport, where a little boy has fallen down a well. Richard Campbell has the story. Ouch!
I'm waiting. I'm waiting for Lassie. Lassie will help me. This week's run was with Louisa Fries, who recorded it in person in Antwerp, of all places. We were talking about Power Platform, and I got alliterative this day. Because what we're really talking about was the fact that if you haven't restricted creation of Power Platform inside your organization, it's happening. And if you don't pay attention to it, you're going to get surprised. And so it's useful to get this Center of Excellence tool. It's actually a governance tool for Power Platform, because it'll go out and find all Power Platform apps that exist in your organization, because they're under individual accounts. They usually have problems with security, and then and they're going to abruptly disappear when somebody changes departments or gets let go, and so it's kind of run rampant inside of the organization. It reminds me of SharePoint back in the day, where everybody had a SharePoint server under their desk, and often IT knew nothing about it until it fell over and they were upset.
That doesn't sound like a good idea. Do not have a SharePoint server under your desk.
A SharePoint under every desk. That was Microsoft's
That's the dream. That's the dream.
Yeah. Well, but it's happening for the same reason. If you lock it completely down, nobody will use it and it'll never go anywhere. You have to leave it loose enough that it starts to propagate and then rein it in. As I think the way we said it on the show is you should let the puppy run, just don't let the puppy throw up.
There you go. Fair enough. And if the puppy poops...
How do you strike that balance?
Well, now, thank you, Richard. We didn't expect you here. We were not prepared. We thought we wouldn't have to do a brown liquor, or Paul was going to do his, but you have come up with one, and actually a nice one. I'm excited.
Well, one of my favorites.
An old standby. Yes.
And also to resist the theme that I only talk about really expensive whiskeys, we're talking about Dewar's 12 today. Yes. So John Dewar and Sons owns a bunch of distilleries. They own Aberfeldy, Altmore, Craigellachie, Macduff, and the Royal Brecla. And they make blends from their whiskeys, a few different kinds. But the Dewar's 12 is a blended whiskey. Notice not a blended Scotch, because they do use grain blends in it. But famously, for it to be called 12, the youngest thing in the bottle can be 12. It's not the oldest thing. In fact, one of the staples they put into Dewar's 12 is a 40. So they put a bunch of different whiskeys together to get to what is a very popular blend. It comes in about $20, $25 a bottle, and you just can't go wrong drinking this. Like, it's just, you'll be very happy.
Wow.
But definitely a blended whiskey, not a blended Scotch. A chunk of it is grain whiskey. It's grain distillate. So,
and this webpage is kind of fun because it's apparently a still, because I see a little steam escaping over there on the right from the handle.
That's awesome. It's like it's a copper backing, right?
Yeah, isn't that hysterical?
Careful. That's probably hot.
It's probably very hot. A lemon wedge. Would you put a lemon wedge in your Dewar's? Well, maybe you would. The recipe's at the website.
If you're making a lemon wedge, you're putting soda water in your whiskey anyway.
Yeah.
And listen, you're never going to abuse Dewar's to the point where I'm going to be upset with you, short of spilling it. Right? That's alcohol abuse. Everything else, do what you want to do.
Richard, I'm glad we could get a visit from you. I hope your flight to Billings is uneventful and you get a nice amount of time.
How much time do you have? Like, when are you leaving?
Boarding's supposed to be in 45 minutes, but I'm skeptical.
Perfect timing. And how long are you going to stay in Billings?
45 minutes.
Yeah, we're 3 days of fishing and then fly back out. So out on Sunday.
Nice. Well, we'll see you right here then next Wednesday, I think. Back in Coquitlam.
Yeah, I'll be back home, but not for much longer. We sold the house in Coquitlam, so
that's right. You got an offer right away. He's moving to the coast.
Yeah, well, that means you're going to get to see the lake house.
Yes.
Yes.
Every Canadian has a salty lake house. Richard Campbell is. Go ahead.
The coast house. I guess. Sorry,
we call it the coast. Yeah,
the coast house.
We call it the coast. Yeah.
You don't have like a fancy name like the Ridings or something, do you?
Clam Flats, something like that.
On VRBO, it's called Sunshine Coast Chill.
Oh, nice. Well, coming to us from the Sunshine Coast Chill, he's the host of Run As Radio, runasradio.com. .net rocks as well. On his way to a little fly fishing. Thank you for being here, Richard. We appreciate it. Thanks to Paul Thurrott. Thurrott.com is his website. Become a premium member for those great trips down memory lane, THURROTT.com. And his new book, Windows Everywhere, is at leanpub.com, right next to his field guide for Windows 11. Leanpub.com. Windows Everywhere is some great stories about the early days and the middle and the later days of Windows. Paul, thank you. Have a great week. We'll be talking to you in Mexico next week.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm also flying United, so we'll see how it goes.
Oh, boy. Well, you should be able to get there in 7 days. I hope you can.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
We'll be back here next Wednesday, which will, I guess, be July 12th, 2023. We do the show 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific, 2 to 5 Eastern Time. That would be about 1800 UTC. You can watch us do it live at live.twit.tv or listen live. There's audio and video streams there. If you're watching or listening live, chat live. The IRC is open to all. You can use your browser to go to irc.twit.tv. If you're a member of the club, of course, the Club Twit Discord, another place you can converse. After the fact, we have 2 communities that you can post your comments and thoughts on. There's our Mastodon instance, also open to all at twit.social. And our forums are at twit.community. That's a discourse forum, and a really nice one, too, I think. We'd love to see you at either or all of those. You can also get copies of the show after the fact at our website, twit.tv/WW. There's a YouTube channel dedicated to Windows Weekly. You'll find a link there at twit.tv/WW. Best thing to do, though, subscribe in your favorite podcast client. You'll get it automatically the minute it's available. Just search for Twit or Windows Weekly in your podcast player, and you should find all our shows. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Richard. Both of you have safe travels, and we'll see you next time on Windows Weekly. Bye-bye.
Hey, we should talk Linux. It's the operating system that runs the internet, a bunch of game consoles, cell phones, and maybe even the machine on your desk. But you already knew all that. What you may not know is that Twit now has a show dedicated to it, the Untitled Linux Show. Whether you're a Linux pro, a burgeoning sysadmin, or just curious what the big deal is, you should join us on the Club Twit Discord every Saturday afternoon for news, analysis, and tips to sharpen your Linux skills. And then make sure you subscribe to the Club Twit exclusive Untitled Linux Show. Wait, you're not a Club Twit member yet? Well, go to twit.tv/clubtwit and sign up. Hope to see you there.